call the Select Board meeting of February 11th to order at 7:02. If you'll please rise and join me in the pledge to the flag, and after that, please remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I ask you to remain standing for a moment of silence for Barbara and John Moschino. Barbara was a school nurse, and John was a teacher and lobsterman, and both very much loved in the town, and they'll be sorely missed. So just one moment. Thank you.
Taking care of Craig first.
Yeah. We have a special guest here today that I would like to introduce before we get started. Mr. Wolf, the floor is yours. I'm sorry for calling you Mr. Wolf. You didn't respond to that. You're not used to it.
The Itasca Beach Car Show, almost 20 years. September 13th, Sunday, we've given almost $90,000 to Cops for Kids for Cancer. This year we're going to be with the 250 committee. We're going to have that part of it. We put in a couple of new trophies. My sister Kim makes, you guys seen all the trophies. She makes it out of car parts. It's the coolest thing. So we have one for Pat Finn, the best beach car. We're going to do John Riley, the third. We're going to do the military. And we're putting in for the 2000, the most Americana Spirit car. So we're going to do that. We're in great shape with the DCR, the state police. The reason that I do the car show is just to annoy the lieutenant over there. Make it hard for him. The chief sticks them on me for the fire chief isn't going to be left out of this either. It's just my job to annoy everyone. The permit's filed with the DCR. It goes really smoothly, and the rest of the money we give to the veterans. So it's really a nice town event. Runs really smoothly. And actually, he gave me the best compliment of his life. I'm driving him crazy for the lights and the signs, and he says, "The car show just runs itself." I said, "Thank you, that's the best compliment of my life."
Great.
So that's it. Was I under 40 seconds?
I think you made it. Yeah, great. Well, first, on behalf of the board and the town, I just want to thank you not only just for the car show, but all the work that you do in town. And the car show is really quite a success. It's one of the jewels of the town. So thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Moved by Gray, seconded by McCarthy. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to say, it's a good thing you do all that good work, because you are cutting the line here. You're not even on the agenda.
It's good to be.
He's on the agenda. He is
I don't know
on the
how he
agenda.
gets this special treatment, but he does do a lot of good things.
He's Wolfie, that's how it happens. And like he said, he annoys everybody, so we needed to get him out of here fast.
Yeah, I have a lot of people
Let's
who
take a
fans
vote.
today. I gotta go.
Let's take a vote before you leave. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. You can go now. Take care. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the January 14th minutes. If folks have had an opportunity to review, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Gray, seconded by McCann. Any discussion, changes, anything? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Next is an appointment with Steve Bowman, owner of Nancy B's Ice Cream, 169 Nantasket Ave, for a common victular license. Mr. Bowman, would you like to just say anything?
No, it's just our new business open on Nantasket, and yes, we're opening this winter. We're looking to open in March, by March 1st. So we want to continue to grow and do things, year round. I'd be remiss if I didn't take advantage of this opportunity real quick. I was at the HRA meeting last night. I have a group of business owners. I also met with the town manager about a month ago and informed her that we have a bunch of small businesses in town that would like to start putting in, we're putting in a bunch of proposals coming up to the HRA to do some different projects on that land. And the fact that I'm here tonight, I basically wanted to inform the board. It's not really an opportunity to fill you guys in, but out of courtesy, I want to say tonight that we're going to look at doing things like farmers markets, flea markets, potentially maybe some small concerts, different events for the town. And we want to work collaboratively both with the HRA and with the town, because I think this is a real positive thing that could happen. I have about 20 small business owners that are working with me. The Boathouse, Oceanside Cuttery, the groomer down, Jen with the groomer down the street, and we all want to see more traffic in this town year round. We're a beach town, we're a summer town, we realize that, but as small business owners in this town, we'd like to see people coming into Hull in the springtime, in the fall, in the winter, and we've spoken and have a lot of plans and feel like we can help plan and organize events in this town, utilizing the HRA property and working with you folks to try to do something positive for the town and to bring in additional people year round. So
Great.
I just wanted to, while I was here, I just want to take the opportunity to just share that.
Thank you, and we look forward to that. And while you're at it, for the folks that don't know, could you say who Nanny B was?
Actually, so Nanny B's is actually Nantasket Beach. So I had a Nana, and my last name is Bowman, so Nanny, so it does fit with Nanny B. But someone had told me years ago that somebody used to call this Nanny Beach. So I said, well, I'm going to play off of Nanny Beach and just do Nanny B's. So Nanny B's, the ice cream and deli is on the corner where Scoops was, and then we're in the process of also doing the convenience store that was Smart Save Variety as well. That's a little longer term process just because there's a liquor license involved and whatnot. But that on top of the South Shore Taco Guy. So we'll have 3 businesses there on Nantasket that we plan on operating 12 months out of the year because we're getting a lot of support from our neighbors in our community. So those who live in that neighborhood, we truly appreciate it. We had a fundraiser tonight for Seaside Animal Shelter and brought in a whole bunch of people and a whole bunch of new customers. So we just want to keep giving to the community because as we give to the community, we find that the community keeps giving back to us. So that's how we feel you operate a business in this town year round, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
Well, thank you for your investments and your confidence in the town. It's much appreciated, and it's a tremendous asset. You are a tremendous asset to the town, so thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
I just got one comment. Just kudos to you, Steve, for what you've done with the food insecurities with people down there.
Yeah.
You're also a taco guy as well?
Yes.
And yeah, so I've seen what you've done. Pretty good program.
Thank
Thank you. People need it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment. Yeah, fantastic. We've seen this guy everywhere. And I was tuned into the HRA meeting, but it was pretty well received
Yes.
from what I saw, right?
Yes.
And it sounds like you met with the town manager and also very well
Yeah,
received.
I just wanted to be open and
Yeah.
transparent, and again, being here tonight, I just wanted to mention, I know there's nothing really we can do or discuss about it, but I think it's best to be open and upfront about everything, because I think that's how we can all work collaboratively on this, because it's not something that anyone's looking to profit from the business side, other than bringing people into town.
So what you're describing, everything you just described, is exactly the charge of the EDC, the Economic Development Committee, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And my recommendation is, I think it's fantastic that you got a group together. I mean, that's community building, and you guys are the business owners. I really think your voices should be heard in those meetings, or at least, speak to the chair who might be here
They
tonight.
reached out to me.
Awesome. Awesome.
I'll be on the meeting next week. And one of the other, just while we're talking about, one of the other things that we want to do is we want to involve all the different nonprofits and schools and sports organizations in this town. So when we organize these events, that those are the ones that are going to profit from it. So if we run a flea market on a Saturday morning, then if the Hull PTO wants to come and run it, they can help. They can do the setup, the cleanup, take out the trash, and then whatever fees that we collect from those vendors will go directly to the Hull PTO. So it really involves. It'll involve the town government, the HRA, the business owners, the residents, and then also just the community as a whole, all the different sports teams, schools, civic organizations that want to take part in this. I think it's just a way that we can kind of bring everyone together at one table and benefit from it.
Again, thank you for your ideas, for your energy, and for everything you contribute and will be contributing to the town. I'll take a vote.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Gray, seconded by McCarthy. Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
very much. I'm gonna go
Congratulations.
close the taco shop.
You got it. Take care now.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Gregory Joint, Principal Architect KBA, for a presentation on the Hull Joint Public Safety Facility Feasibility Study Update and Site Selection Options. I think I got that all right, yep.
Thank you all and good evening. My name is Greg Joint. I represent Castle Booz Associates, an architect hired by the town to review the project and create a study that outlines the options for the process. A little bit about KBA, just for reference. We're a 65-person architecture firm with offices throughout New England. We've been around for about 60 years and have done over 250 public safety facilities throughout New England, so well experienced in this. Just quickly, we'll go through what the study is, the scope and the process of what we go through to establish the feasibility, assessment of conditions, a brief touch on your existing buildings, site analysis, and a little bit about how we've gone about the site analysis, which I think will have probably the most interest, and then potential project configurations that are still under consideration as we go through the process. And then finally, touch on one of the next big steps in the process, which is community outreach. So this meeting is sort of the kickoff of that process to get out into the community and start hearing more from the community, what things they like, what things they're thinking about, concerns they may have, so that we can use that to help inform the study and those outcomes.
If I could just, in way of introducing it, and just to make sure that folks understand, this is a study, you're not making recommendations, this is the result of your study at this point, to inform and begin the process.
So yes, we've completed, I'd say, more than half of the feasibility, but the first half is really gathering information, understanding the data, and compiling that into a number of options to look into. That's sort of where we are. So we'll get right into the scope and process, and we like to lay it out in kind of four major parts. So the first is the assessment of the existing conditions. So this building in the fire headquarters, we're looking to assess the building, identify needs, and really create a baseline understanding of the programmatic deficiencies in this building. So the things that the user agencies, the departments need that aren't here. Second is the site assessment. So we look throughout the town at sites, identify all potential sites, create an evaluation criteria to look into those sites and to evaluate them on a understandable matrix of a rubric of how we look at those and why the things that we're looking at are important. And then finally, provide a ranking of sites for consideration for the town to choose. Next is programming. This is essentially meeting with the departments, finding out what their needs are, comparing that against relevant industry standards and practices, and then looking at combining facilities. Here you have a public safety building, looking at what that means, how can we be most efficient and cost effective in any option that we would develop. And finally, conceptual design, which is looking at alternatives. We've gathered a ton of information. Now looking at alternatives, test fitting those alternatives onto the relevant sites. And then finally, we would create a cost model that compares those relevant alternatives to each other so the town can understand not only the physical impacts of those built conditions, but also the financial impacts to ultimately then, to your point, choose a preferred option and move that into an actual design and construction project. So what that looks like, here we are in the study. We've done most of the behind-the-scenes work that is really gathering of data and analyzing of data. We're now starting to create conceptual designs, which is really where we start to engage more broadly with the public to make sure we understand not only what we've seen in data, but what folks here on the ground have experienced, what their concerns are, and ultimately what they would like to see in any potential project. That is on a diagram, it looks like an arrow, but that is a bit of a back and forth process where we take the feedback we get out here in the town, we incorporate that into the options and into the considerations of what options may rise to the top ultimately as chosen by the town. And we'll finalize that report and coming out of that, we hope to have from the town a selected preferred option, an option that you would like to all move forward with into a design and construction project. The timeline or process for the construction project is below. That's a much more extensive process. Obviously, usually from design through construction, you're looking at between 24 and 36 months, generally about a year in design, 14 months in design, and then 18 to 24 months in construction, depending on the project, the site, and the outlay. So just in terms of time, that's kind of, the 3 to 4 year time horizon is sort of the fastest you would probably move through that process before you would be in any new building. Just an assessment of conditions. Obviously, the town has voted to approve a feasibility study for these buildings. I won't spend a ton of time on the existing conditions. The first building we evaluated was the building we're in now, the town hall, police and fire facilities. This building dates back quite a while to the 1900s. Brick building has many deficiencies. And really, in many ways, most of the systems within the building have primarily reached the end of their useful lives and require replacement or major upgrades. So I don't think any of that information is news to likely anybody. That's kind of par for the course on a building of this age. I will say that the conditions physically are one concern, but also the programmatic challenges that departments face in this building are a really big concern and a potential liability for the town. Detention facilities, decontamination facilities for firefighters are all lacking or below standards in these buildings. This is not surprising given the building's age. That's pretty normal for a facility of this age. And it's just time, I think, I think the town realizes to do something about the issues that are here. The other building that we assessed was the fire headquarters. Built in 1909, has been updated over the years. In terms of comparison, that building is in somewhat better condition than this building, but also lacks a lot of space that is required for the fire department in modern apparatus and safe operations. So, the picture I chose here isn't a very exciting one, but just speaks to the operational challenges the fire department has and the sort of risks that are kind of built into buildings like this. So on the left is the ambulance, on the right is the lockers for their turnout gear, so the protective clothing they wear to fires, and hanging there next to the truck is the exhaust capture. So even if we can clean their turnout gear, it goes right back into a dirty place where it's not protected from exhaust and things like that. And that's not anything that the chief can solve individually here just because of lack of space. The buildings are just subsequently undersized for what the modern needs are. In the first picture, you could see that the ladder truck just kind of scrapes in right under that garage door where they've kind of cut it out, and it's right up against the the ceiling of that room, which is the floor to the rooms below. Ideally, we would like to see 6 to 7 feet above that ladder and above the engines so that firefighters can get up, maintain those vehicles, work in those vehicles inside the station, and do that safely. So I won't spend too much time on existing conditions. We could talk for hours about those, but given the time, I will move on to potential site selection. In potential site selection, we're looking at broadly a lot of factors, particularly here in Hull. Existing development, flood zones, storm and wave action zones, zoning, topography, land use, wetlands, water courses, Continuity of service and infrastructure are big here because of the layout and the geography of Hull. All of these things become heightened here as opposed to other towns where there are different considerations, though these things might raise individually to prominence. Here, these things are amplified quite a bit. So in our work, we cast a very large net. Before you are the sites that we've looked at. It is the majority of town-owned sites. We may have excluded one or two for getting everything in, but all of the major town sites are on this and have been evaluated. It also includes a number of private sites that were also evaluated in part of our review. So if we look at this map as compared to the last map, the blue area here is the 1% flood risk zone. So as you can see, the majority of the town is within a 1% flood risk zone. I, again, don't think that's really a surprise to anybody. You live here year-round. You've been through these events. But on the left, you can see how many sites fall off the list once you take out all of the sites that are within the 1% flood zone. And we'll go into just kind of where we landed in terms of sites that kind of rose to prominence in terms of our review. Those were the fire department, the existing fire department at 671 Nantasket, the school department site, the fields in front of the new, or the old middle school, right? I'm saying that, right? So those fields and an adjacent lot across the street, the town hall site, so the site that we're on now, and then finally the HRA sites along Atlantic Ave. So in terms of the fire department site, relatively small site, would not generally be considered, but given the limited site options, this is considered here. It does have a higher flood risk than some of the other sites, but is a potential option here. It really is small, and in most analyses, this would have fallen off the list, but again, given the constraints, this stayed on the list for a number of reasons. The second site is two sites really, 765 and 767 Nantasket, so the fields, and then an adjacent lot across the street that is currently used as parking. So that is an option. Again, still has a significant flood risk, but is part of the site options that we think are relevant. In the last one, second to last I'll go through is 5 Water Street. So this is shown in its current configuration here. We are aware of the potential reconfiguration of Hull Shore Drive, and that's incorporated into our conceptual options that we'll get to in a little bit. Again, a flood risk certainly, but a more moderate flood risk than the previous sites that we've looked at. One thing that this site does have for it is size. The other sites are fairly restricted in size, particularly on the ball fields. If we try to keep those ball fields because we know how important they are to the town, we think there's still an option there, but really trying to find ways where we can preserve existing amenities to the town and find a way to make the best use of your land. Last on the sites, town hall site. So town owned. This is This is no flood risk. So this ranks really high in terms of flood risk. The challenge here really becomes first, response time to the north for the fire department, and two, that it is their existing building, much like fire headquarters, where in order to build here, you would have to move the departments out and then reintroduce them back to the site after construction is done. So These sites, along with others, resulted in a potential rankings. So if you'll notice, we have some rows for top-rated sites, and nothing really got there. So that tells us you have a challenging town and geography. But there were several that we just reviewed that rose to the top. This list is weighted. It weights town-owned properties fairly heavily because we understand, and I think the departments were cognizant of the financial impact of having to go out and procure land with, the understanding that HRA is a, quasi-governmental board and somewhat separate from the town. Those still ranked fairly high because there is some access there and there's no current development on those sites. Again, current development, program fit, infrastructure risk, so not just the risk to the site, but the infrastructure feeding that site, adjacencies, making sure we're not in the middle of a small confined neighborhood to the best extent possible. We're on major roadways throughout the town to make sure fire apparatus can get out easily. Temporary facilities costs, so a pretty low weighting on temporary facilities costs, but taking into effect that some options require costs associated with temporary facilities. An anticipated response time. This is one Chief and Deputy Chief and I talked a lot about. Making sure that the locations of your departments or buildings enable the department to respond to all parts of town in a reasonable response time. So, Chief, from headquarters right now up to the high school is on a full response. It's about six minutes. That's about the longest we'd like to see that response. In your case, a detailed response time analysis isn't really necessary. It's kind of a straight line. So once you go past those points, we kind of have a really good data on what it takes to get there. You start to affect those response times. Secondary to that, that's your primary response. In your case, municipal aid is often very, very far away in terms of time and distance. So the preference would be to have maybe 2 stations if it becomes necessary that could cross-respond. So if one station is empty because they're out on a response or at the hospital with rescue, that other station can cover maybe not in that 6 minutes, but in still a reasonable time and distance. So that all weights into this table, and as you can see, those sites that we talked about kind of raised to the top. In terms of programming and kind of the configuration of options, we really looked at 4 things. One is a full consolidation, so both departments in one building, ideally that would be centrally located in town. Unfortunately, in our case, that's just not really an option here in town, in Hull. There's just not a spot that gets the fire department and the police department to both ends of town from one spot. There just isn't a place that's somewhere out in the bay, and unless we put everybody on a barge, it's just not quite going to work. So that then falls down into kind of 3 more options. No consolidation, which would mean 3 different buildings, or 2 different buildings, a police and a fire facility, but that also triggers the same issue with fire, right? Fire is really the one we need to split apart so that we can get response time back and forth to the ends of town. So then we look at replacing, basically the scenario that you have now, which is a public safety building with a fire substation. And then third, no consolidation. So potentially 3 separate buildings, 2 fire stations, 1 being the headquarters, and a police station. Working through a number of different options, and I will apologize to the chiefs and their departments for putting them through, I think, 14 or so of these. We boiled them down to 6, and the first 3 were really the ones that the departments felt like were an operationally sound model. And that would be a public safety building here replacing this building. And then a substation at 671 Nantasket, so the existing fire headquarters, new building there. Option 2 would be the same here, a public safety building here on this site, but then a fire substation up at the field site without impacting the fields in any large extent. And then the third option would be a public safety building on the 5 Water Street site, and then a fire substation at 671 Nantasket. That said, you know, in theory, there could be a 3A where the substation switched to the other option, but for, you know, argument's sake, these 3 are valid and reasonable thoughts for consideration. So just kind of to put those into perspective, you know, and I will say this part of the process is really not about design necessarily, but really about fitting the sites, making sure that the buildings fit, making sure they're operational, and making sure that they work for responses in the department's needs. So this is the first option. This building would be replaced in you know, a style that's similar to what we have now, but moved forward to Atlantic Ave a little bit to gain more space in the rear. This is a fairly constrained site, but we believe it will work for the department's needs. And then to the top right, a replacement of the fire headquarters at 671 Nantasket. So the next option, again, this site stays the same in that option, but you can see on the upper right, a fire substation, I apologize, at the ball fields. So on that northeast corner of the ball fields, and then would utilize that lot across the street for parking for the department. And option 3 would be an option that looks at 5 Water Street. This option looks at it in the reconfigured street plan of Hall Shore Drive. That said, it could work without that, but it looks to site it on the southernmost portion of that site once recombined with the piece that's kind of out in the middle of the road. Create parking on both sides of the building for the departments, and then essentially you know, leave the remainder of the site for further development into you know, community assets, as the gentleman before me was talking about. We think that's a really great opportunity there, particularly if the reconfiguration of roads happens. That really could become a connection from the HRA parcel that is on the bay side through out to the Atlantic side. And finally, just a little bit about community engagement, and I'll let Jennifer jump in here where she feels appropriate. But our process really starts with a lot of kind of unexciting work, looking at charts and graphs and more flood maps than I care to even think about anymore. But then going out into the community with these options, or potentially more options that come to light through the process, listening, understanding through forums, through small group meetings, and then being transparent about the process. So at the end, we have a link to a website that the town has started where you know, these formal documents will ultimately live and can be accessed easily by the public. You know, a transparent design process in making sure that people understand not only what is being proposed, but the costs, and then ultimately the impact on them is really important. Regular updates through the town manager's office, through the departments are all relevant. Our goal is to answer all you know, relevant questions about the process, resulting options, and potentially other thoughts that the community has that could make the project better.
Thanks, Greg. So I'll just jump in a little bit. As Greg noted, I want to thank him for providing the process clearly to everyone. I think that's the most important piece of this puzzle right now is understanding where we're at and where we're not at in terms of the process. A lot of the technical work that Greg described has been completed to help narrow down viable locations for the potential joint public safety facility. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the chiefs and their staff that are here that have been working and communicating about their needs and help working through this process at this point. So where we are at is the community engagement piece, and in that vein, I would ask the board this evening to establish a public safety building committee, and the recommendation is that that's a 9-member committee with representation, 1 person from the police department, 1 person from the fire department, town manager's office, advisory board, member, and then 4 residents at large. I think that's 9.
Yeah, that's 9.
Thank you. And that building committee, the intent would be that they help the process at this point as we're doing our community outreach and in supporting the project, helping narrow down the location, or at least support as we get closer to pinpointing a location, because until we have that location, we won't have the design and can't really further the process. And so they would stay together throughout, from today, or conception through construction, and really be a support arm to the project in its entirety. And then we are looking to schedule, we expect community outreach to begin the last week in February. And these are some of the groups that the internal staff group identified as targeted outreach. So school committee, school organizations such as the PTO boosters, do a session at the senior center, the library, Chamber of Commerce, Rotary, Veterans Group, Save Our Open Space. I will very briefly note, and I hope cleared up any miscommunication, that the HRA site has not been selected as the site recommended for the public safety facility. It's just one of the more viable options for the center, or excuse me, for the facility. And so that's just a sample. If the board has other thoughts or groups that we should reach out to, please let us know. We'll include them. And turn back to Greg.
So that said, that was a great deal of information in a rather short time. I will turn back to the chair and the board for questions, comments, thoughts on the process. Happy to address them in any way that I can.
First, I'd like to thank you and your organization for the amount of work that you've put into this, and for a very clear and succinct presentation. So thank you, and I know this is, again, to reiterate, this is really the beginning of the public process to begin to move this forward. Jen?
Yeah, Erwin, and I just want to give the opportunity to both chiefs, if there's
Right.
anything they'd like to add, maybe before the board has questions that they might be able to address, or
Chief,
putting them on
what
the
say
spot,
you?
but.
Obvious, I think the town knows we're in bad need of a public safety complex. Both our buildings are well over 100 years old. He's being generous. They came and studied our buildings multiple times. It's very bad working conditions. And there's going to be a video that we're going to have for the community to watch. Both joint fire and police. We're of one mind that we need a new complex, and we're hoping that this is a great start and it continues forward, and we get the support of the community to make it come true. Neither of us will probably be there by then, the way the time frames is going, but we're happy to be a big part of moving it forward.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Chief Russo?
Yeah, I'd agree with the chief. I mean, this has been a conversation for many years, right? It's come back and forth, and I think mostly about the health and the welfare of our members, both the police department and the fire department. And there's no mystery that we have a tremendously high cancer rate at Hellfire, myself included. So conditions there are not good. We've done the best we can with that facility, but it's not a healthy environment. We can test the air, we can do a lot of things, and diminish part of that, but at the end of the day, as Greg mentioned, the exhaust in the buildings on the second floor, above the living quarters. We try and keep it tidy. Every year we do a little work on that station. So it looks great from the outside. It's good for a Christmas card, but it's not a place that you should have, $10 million in equipment and people living. So I think it's a big undertaking. We understand the fiscal piece of this very well, and we're cognizant of that. But as Greg said, this is just the start, and the time is it's the start of the process. Obviously, the public's got a lot of input here, and we'll navigate it and figure it out. And if it's the will of the people, then we'll have a new public safety building. If it's not, then we'll have to figure something else out.
I'd like to underscore what both chiefs have said. I've toured both facilities, I've seen them, and to call them substandard is actually a compliment. They're really in terrible shape, and it's beyond the time that we should have dealt with this. And I'd also like to congratulate and thank the town manager for moving this along and making this a priority. Our first responders deserve nothing less. So I'm glad to see that this process is beginning. So thank you both. Questions, comments from the board? Greg?
I have two questions. Naturally, one building would probably be less than building two, correct?
Yeah, so building one building, in theory, is less expensive. You gain efficiency in two ways. One, you're only developing one site, so your site costs and management costs are generally less expensive. But two, we can find a little bit more efficiency in the building generally in a bigger building.
Mm-hmm.
That said, which is often the case in many towns, that does not replace the response time need. Mm-hmm. That response time need, any savings you would gain there, would ultimately cost you primarily in your insurance rates, because you wouldn't be able to get response to your community as fast as your insurers would prefer, and
Mm-hmm.
I suspect your residents would prefer.
Mm-hmm.
So here, because I forget how many miles of shoreline you have, something like 27 miles of shoreline and 2.5 miles of real estate. That means you have a very, very long stretch, and in the summer, particularly, Chief, I think you can probably attest to navigating the traffic, getting across town, and responding in kind of two directions, even from the center. Is very difficult because the center is exactly the place where all that traffic is. So in the case where you consolidate public safety, so you keep some of the efficiencies or most of the efficiencies by consolidating public safety, but then have a fire station to address a fire substation to address the response time needs. You don't get the best of the full consolidation, but you get a lot of the benefits without sacrificing the response time.
Mm-hmm.
But if I could just add to that, just to be clear, even if there were a substation, there are some services and facility that would be shared. So
Absolutely, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
provide some cost savings.
I have one more question. So I know we're talking about all town-owned spots at this point.
So
outside of the HRA.
So we did assess a couple of other non-town-owned sites, and because of the weighting for town-owned sites, they generally ranked lower. But there weren't many that kind of rose to the top. Most of your sites in town are relatively small in land area, so that kind of is restrictive. And as you saw on the maps, most of them are in flood zones. So when you weigh those two things against it, plus I'm sure anybody who's bought land or property in Hull recently has noticed that the property values are relatively high in terms of area. So to the chief's point, the fiscal concern for those are also in consideration. So I would love it if there was a ideal property. It makes my job a whole heck of a lot easier. But unfortunately, many of those sites just didn't rank high enough to really get into the point where you would consider them.
So the only reason it comes to mind is because every time I drive by it, I think about it, and that's A Street and Nantasket Ave, the old convenience store, the bus lot, that area. And again, I realize it's in a flood zone, but as we move forward, is there a way to
Yes.
Find out what that financial cost would be, and if it fits with what the chiefs are looking for, you know?
Yeah, so in terms of those lots, we did actually look at those lots, you know, not in great depth, but in relatively the same depth that we looked at the other lots. And the benefit of the additional area for those lots didn't outweigh the risks that that area has for flooding. Mitigating those flood risks mean essentially moving everything up off of the ground level. Because of the lot size, the configuration of the roads, you can't fix that problem with like site grading or things like that. And that lot, even if you combine the two lots, wasn't quite big enough, in our opinion, for the public safety building. So at that point, you kind of have better options with some of the other town-owned lots without the expense of acquisition. But it's a very relevant point, and I think the same could be said for other lots around town. But when you look at them in comparison to, you know, things that are already either owned by the HRA or the town, they kind of drop off the list relatively quickly, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
I got a quick comment regarding bonding. Anything in a flood zone? Do we know? I know I've heard different rumors, and everybody has an opinion. I've heard 8 opinions. Have you built your company built in flood zones before? Or?
Yeah, so not coastal flood zones, but Leominster Police was built within a flood zone and actually flooded about 2 weeks before they opened. The building was built up out of the flood zone, obviously. The only thing affected was the parking lot and one vestibule in the bottom of the elevator shaft that's required to get down to grade. But yeah, that does happen. It's unfortunate, and unfortunately, you can tell by the map there just aren't a whole heck of a lot of options here in Hull. So certainly, I'm not an expert in bonding, insurance, or flood zones particularly, but our team has experts in flood zones, and the town obviously will engage with bond counsel and financial advisors that can advise of that, and through the process, any scenario that you would go move forward on, that stuff would happen prior to this ultimate selection.
Thank you.
The flood zone isn't prohibitive for bonding.
Well, I can see
or
some
borrowing,
restrictions,
but-
especially, maybe not state monies, but federal monies, That's, again, I've talked to so many people, and I've heard like 10 different things, and, everybody's an expert until they're not an expert. So obviously Leominster didn't have a problem with ultimately bonding, in a floodplain.
Yeah. Okay. And fortunately or unfortunately, sometimes public safety buildings have very little opportunity for either state or federal funding.
Okay.
There are some equipment grants and potentially some other small grants, but in a project like this, those are fairly minor in comparison to the overall cost, and they really don't become a determining factor in most cases. Now,
interesting.
Any day that the legislature would like to change that, that would certainly be fine with us. But as it stands, those opportunities like the Mass School Building Authority for schools just don't exist for public safety facilities.
There has been proposed legislation for years, and it just goes nowhere, unfortunately. It is a consistent message that gets sent up to the State House, but federal or state funding, as Greg noted, is basically non-existent for a public safety building, which is a shame. So that is going to be one of the challenges with the project.
So obviously, we're going to have to take the brunt of
Yes.
a vast majority of it.
Yeah.
I will note one thing that Hull has a significant advantage of in terms of cost is that you have already regionalized your emergency communications, and that really is a significant savings to the project. Not only is those areas expensive in terms of equipment costs, but also square footage. So not having that in town not only makes you a little bit more resilient because of your geographic location, but is really operationally a great thing for the departments, but also a great thing for the project because we now just don't have to build any of that infrastructure in or the square footage to hold those folks. So that is really kind of a benefit that Hull has that a lot of other communities haven't yet taken advantage of. So credit to the town for kind of being ahead of the game on that one and getting that done so that you're not trying to make two transitions at once.
Thank you. Anything, Jerry?
Yeah, so this is, I appreciate the town manager prioritizing this. Really, really solid presentation, very detailed. It was good hearing from the chiefs. I have so many questions, but first one is Blizzard of 78. Do you guys have any feedback on the flooding experience at the 8th Street Firehouse in particular?
Just so happens I lived on D Street, albeit I was in the 10th grade. We had more water from C Street down in the Alphabet Streets. It did come across at that one peak tide, and they connected on the Itasca Ave, so the water came up and receded. The fire station itself at A Street didn't get water, believe it or not. There's a crest in the road at A Street on the grade, so it didn't really come across there, same as the HRA lot, quite frankly.
So the firehouse vehicles were able to operate pretty freely, yeah?
They were, yes. The chief at the time pre-positioned assets.
Interesting.
Moved them out of there for that reason up on the hills.
Yeah.
Into the village, Coast Guard Station, and other places that we can keep them safe during the storm so we can respond after us. And as we know, the village was underwater. We had 3 buildings on fire down there at one time, down by the Dust Bowl. But the water, I think when the guy got off the truck there to get the hose and the hydrant, he was underwater with the hose. So that place did flood, but the 8th Street section was pretty solid. Even when the Corps came through and the National Guard came through, the water, it seemed like the roads were the projects on D Street, they're elevated. So the cars were floating on the bay side of that time for that one tide, but it was snow and ice was our problem after that. It wasn't so much the massive flooding, other than Beach Ave area, which got, obliterated.
So I'm just also curious, the amount of time that's been spent on this, just rough timeline, is it a 6-month process you've just gone through? Is it a year and a half?
Yeah, I could,
Approximately.
no, that's
Trying to do
okay.
the math. We started basically in the summer, early summer. We've gone through a lot of, as I say, a lot of the time is spent on site selection. Really, the site selection here is probably, not probably, it is the most challenging part of this project.
Yeah.
Just because of your geography.
Yeah.
Not because of any in particular reason.
So the project kicked off the end of July.
So about 6 months, okay, cool. So one site I appreciate Mr. Gray's suggestion, because a lot of people in town have suggested that exact, but you're talking about either purchasing those private properties, right, or taking them by eminent domain, which we've done some things with eminent domain. This is a public safety building, very high priority. One could say, and I've heard the argument before, for the greater good of the community, being centrally located for both emergency, in the 8th Street area somewhere, and the site that always catches my eye is the base of Strawberry Hill, and as you come around the corner, there's obviously homes there, but that's somewhat elevated. Even on the map you showed, it's out of the flood zone. I don't know who owns that property. I'm just really asking the question, but yeah, I know we're putting a water tank up there, right? It's centrally located. It's elevated. You could, and my other question is, you have some options there. There's a firehouse at A Street for hitting the emergency response times, right? How are the issues that we currently have addressed? Isn't separating the equipment completely from the living quarters a priority? And can we still do that at that site, even for a smaller firehouse?
Yeah, so let me answer the first question that is more in my wheelhouse first. So yes, we still do at times build bunk rooms and living quarters above apparatus bays. It is much easier to do that in a new building and to isolate those areas than it is in an existing building. Doing that in an existing building, would take you would have to fully renovate that building to really get that right. In the new building codes and with new mechanical systems, not only can you isolate it physically by sealing, openings and things like that, you can also control the mechanical equipment to put that apparatus bay into somewhat negative pressure compared to the rest of the building, so that even if you're opening doors and things like that, that air, when you open the door, goes out toward the apparatus bay instead of coming back through. So, look, the fire service is a dangerous field to be in. I think the people that are there know that. And there is no perfect scenario where we can completely remove the risks of carcinogens and other hazardous materials from their operations because they're just in it every day. What we look to do is to separate those at the greatest extent possible to make sure we provide thorough and appropriate decontamination spaces. So not only are they decontaminating at the scene, but when they come back to the building, they're able to clean themselves in all of their gear appropriately, let it dry for the right duration, and then get that gear back into service. That's operationally the best thing for the department because it makes the gear last longer, it puts it back into service earlier, and that means you get faster responses, but also for the firefighter because they're just able to get that stuff off of them and clean as well as possible quickly. In terms of the site, I am pretty good at the map of Hull, but I'm not as good as all of you. So certainly if there's an address or a group of addresses, Chief?
We looked at that, Jerry. We looked over there at the site, and even taking up properties there and going backwards, there's not enough room. It's just simply not enough room there. Even if we dug into the hill, there would be enough room over there.
And again, in my head, I have envisioned a longer, wider building with the living quarters completely separated by a small walk-through tunnel. And you just explained that's not exactly the case. You guys just obviously, did you work on the one in Hingham?
Yeah,
Just
so
went up?
yeah,
So-
we've done the one in Hingham.
I know you've done a ton of them.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't personally involved in Hingham, but the chief and I know a lot of, both chiefs and I know a lot of the same people because we've worked for a lot of surrounding communities. Mansfield, Plainville, Easton is currently ongoing. Abington, we have dozens of them ongoing now, and everyone's a little bit different and responds to the needs of the community and kind of the lay of the ground when we get there. So.
But the living quarters typically would be overhead or adjacent, but sealed off somehow, hermetically sealed with the HVAC mechanicals?
Yeah, so, we get into the weeds a little bit on this, but, the apparatus bay we'll call a hot zone. So where apparatus are coming in and out, where crews are coming back from active responses, taking their gear off, and then there's a warm zone that is basically a vestibule between that zone and the decontamination area in their living quarters. And the living quarters we consider a cool zone. So I would say that there's no risk, obviously, but that the risk is much diminished by the time you get into the living quarters, and that the firefighters are able to go through that decontamination room, get their gear off, get that stuff into the appropriate cleaning facilities, and then also have showers to wash themselves off, a locker to get a change of clothes before they go back into the living quarters. So all of that risk and those carcinogens are trapped as much as we can there and never actually make it into the living quarters.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Well, I don't have any comments or questions now other than to say, thank you again also for doing this project, moving it forward. Thank you to both chiefs. I just want to take some time to digest it all. Thank you to the town manager for moving the process forward. And I know there are a lot of people here who want to comment, and if there are other people here as well from the police and fire departments who want to comment. I took a tour with Chief Dunn of the police station. I remember Deputy Fraser's speech at a town meeting last year. I mean, I just think this is definitely an urgent project. The facilities are below standard, and I'm glad we're starting the process, but for now, I'm just going to digest everything and hope we can open up to some comment.
Before that, I just want to ask the chiefs if you have anything further to add.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, Jerry, about the living space. It is critical, quite frankly. Everyone's familiar with PFAS. We know what's going on there across the country. It's in our turnout gear. It's the reason guys are getting so sick. The cancer rate is exploding in the fire service right now across the entire country. I'm in talks with other chiefs right now that after we had the fire in Berkeley earlier the other day, call after call after call, the decon process almost doesn't happen. So we can wash down with a hose and use our wet naps and our wipes and and clean ourselves the best as possible, but now they're talking about using mutual aid so that we can take an engine company from another town, bring them into Hull, so our guys can take the time to shower and clean, take their gear. We bought extractors, washing machines, 2 sets of gear, 2 sets of gloves, so anything we can do to, we're working on more cancer screening, so that's a really big component of this, quite frankly. It has to do with, we've had guys leave this fire department because of living conditions. So, and they transferred out and went to other places, because they didn't want to get sick, they were young kids, or they had babies, they just didn't want to get sick on this job. I mean, we know it's an inherent risk, we operate in dangerous places, both departments. But that's a really important part of this project, in my eyes. If you want to retain your employees, you want to keep them here and keep them healthy, they have to be able to live and thrive in a place that is what we're speaking of. And the buildings right now are just, they're just their end of life, without, beating up on them too much. We can only paint them so many times.
Both departments and all the staff are in dangerous jobs, and you deserve a decent place to operate from and a safe facility. So I'm very happy that we're moving this forward. And just want to open it up to if there are any public questions or comments. Yes, name and address, please.
Sure, Pat Cormier, 14 Cushing down in the village. So I'm very concerned with response time. One question in terms of the selection process, has there been given any thought, obviously Town Hall is town-owned, it's a building that is beyond its use right now as well. If we were to relocate this anywhere else, we're still left with the issue of what are we going to do with the Town Hall. So has any thought been given to that or any conversation around that yet?
Not necessarily. I think getting through this process and narrowing down that this is not the best location before we, that I don't want to put the cart before the horse. So no.
Yeah, but it is on the list of possible sites, but
yeah,
it's just
and
on the
just
list.
looking down the road, I think that what we do with this and the cost of that, because there's significant cost to this building. How do we sell this location, or we do something with this building, or whatnot? But there's significant cost associated with what we do with this building, and if we're going to incur a significant cost of a public safety location, I would say that might bump this location up. I'm not saying
Are you suggesting that to sell this property to help offset the cost of it?
That's one possibility, but actually what I'm saying is instead of that, right? I would, if you look at everything, what I would say is, what's the most valuable property if you sell it or for the town? And what I would say is, if I'm looking and I'm comparing town hall property compared to HRA property, I would say from a community perspective in terms of the value, and I don't just mean economic value, I mean community value, the property of HRA is much more valuable to the town than this property if we sell it for an alternative use. So what I guess what I'd be advocating for is almost the dual solution of we redo this building, which is going to have significant cost anyway, and we do this as the safety location, and then we have the dual location, like what current status is, but with a significantly better building, safety, keeping the chief safe, that sort of thing. So that's sort of where my mind goes in terms of what we envision for this building does enter into the conversation of those choices.
Thank you.
Yes, so the 6 options that sort of rose to the top, there were the 3, those really rose to the top out of those 6 options, and I think it's fair to say both departments feel that this would be the ideal location with that substation for fire.
Yeah.
And that'll be all part of the community process as well, looking at those sites and helping to make those determinations. Yes, name and address, please.
Thank you. What I was wondering if this...
Excuse me?
Oh, sorry, yes. David Kellum, 2 Marina Drive. What I was wondering in the option that includes rebuilding this building, where does the fire department and the police department go for the 3 years or so, and what would that cost? Are we going to have to build another building, a temporary building, on another site?
We got lots of street parking, it's no problem.
So I mean, how does that cost factor into all of this?
So I can speak to the process and the study process and what that would include. So the study process would include temporary facilities in the ultimate cost evaluation of this building. The study process, just for clarity, would not include potential costs that came to this building, like if we chose a different site. It wouldn't include that because we couldn't necessarily price that because we just don't know what it would be. But that said, there are temporary facilities costs that are significant, and I would say are a real challenge for this community and any community that faces them. So the point is well taken that obviously there's something that has to be done with this building later, but that has to be balanced against what those temporary facilities costs are, and then just are those temporary facilities just even feasible here in Hull, given your geographic location, the propensity for storms, and the chief's adversity to tents. That's really hard to really boil down. But in that cost analysis that results from what become the 3 or so options, that will be included at least for the temporary facilities. So hopefully that is helpful.
Okay, thank you. Yes, name and
Ellen
address.
Whitney, 115 Manamet. I'm just really surprised that you found that A Street's more of a risk of flooding than the HRA lot. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a surprise to us too, but it does have some significant differences. So I try to pop through. I don't remember what order my slides are in, but let's just take Nantasket, where the fire headquarters is now currently. So the little clip of the map there in the left corner there is the 1% flood depth elevation. I think this is the 2050 map when considering sea level rise. It doesn't greatly affect it depending on what map you work. But as you can see, the fire station is basically center of that property, so the fire station is here, at the corner of A Street, and that site right now in this flood map is 3.5 to 4 feet underwater. If we come to Nantasket Ave, so the fields, again, we're 3.5, 4 feet underwater. If we go to 5 Water Street, however, because of the elevation and because of the seawall, that site is, about 6 inches underwater in a flood zone, so something that we can easily address with site grading. But also, you'll notice just here, there is a small portion that is outside of the current flood zone. And because there is a bit of a seawall there, that puts it in an AO zone, so a zone that is not affected by wave action, as opposed to some other sites. So if you go up and down Nantasket, you go into wave action zones where you take the flood level and then you add to it with the wave action. So it's a little bit difficult to see when you're out there, but while the team was out evaluating the fire station, we had a pretty good rain that day, I think. We couldn't fly our drone. It was very disappointing. But the team did have the opportunity while the department was out on a call to go down to the Bayside, and those streets were flooded the day we were here. So that comes up, at A Street and goes to that area ultimately in a storm. So a little bit unexpected, but that is, what the maps show, and far be it from me to try to be an expert in flood mapping.
Yes, name and address,
Pam
please.
Barlow, 6 Old Colony Road. So I think you just showed where the fields are. You said that was like where the memorial gym, whatever it is, the defunct school, and the fields in front, that floods too much, but yet you were thinking of putting a facility on that field?
Yeah, so to be clear, all of these options are in some flood risk.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand, where in that 765, 767, where is the building that you would put?
So it would be up in the northeast corner, there.
Northeast, okay.
So against Nantasket, there are 2 parking areas that would essentially be there.
Okay, and then the parking was across the street. And why would that be an okay location?
So in that location, much like the existing headquarters, essentially what we would do is we would build the apparatus bay down at grade so you could get fire apparatus out. In the event of floods, the department would reposition assets outside of that building to make sure that, you know, those stuff are outside of there. The rest of the building would be built elevated so that if it flooded, the apparatus bay we would build so essentially it can flood and then be easily cleaned after the fact, recover there. And really what these options have that you need is the ability to get response out to the community, both to the north and in the event that the southernmost station is you know out, to get it back down across town to the south. So
that seems like a very central location, and it seems to have a lot of land available there. So in my thinking, that would be a really good option for the one building. You would lose your fields, is that the thought?
Yeah, and I just wanted to
Move the fields to the HRA land, which they're trying to make into a more community-friendly area, and boom, you got it.
I just wanted to be clear, so that location, the suggestion right now would be just the substation for fire.
I get that, but what I'm proposing is do the one building there.
And
You
so
can elevate the police station.
if I could just address that, because I
Yeah.
know it seems centrally located, but in fact geographically it's not. That site is actually here. So from this location back to the south, you just can't get the response time that you would look for, particularly to the south. So the response time from that location to the
It's not
south.
that far from A Street where you were talking about that, am I correct, or?
I understand, and A Street would also be a substation, right? So the public safety that would be located more toward this side of town would be on this side of town. The other substation would be further to the north, so that you could respond to the extents of the town from each, get there within 6 minutes.
Yes, there's a hand in the back, I can't see what it is.
Hi, Liz Kay, 45 Hampton Circle. Thanks for the presentation today, this is really helpful. I have 2 thoughts. One has to do with best practice being to look at 2070, not 2050, with regard to flood and sea level.
Yep.
You said 2050, and I just want to say I hope this building is around much after that, and so we should be really looking at where that spike is. It's not 2050. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, I just, Jen, this is really for you, but maybe you can just help with some timelines here. We started a master planning process last summer. At no point, as a member, I never remember, shame on me, remembering this facility coming up in any of the whiteboarding or any of the discussions as something. I sort of feel like and it's now, master plan has now been put on hold as far as I can tell. But I'm just sort of concerned that we're sort of, you know, as a small community, we've got a number of high price, very important projects that are ahead of us, and I don't want to be in your shoes to try to figure that out. But to do it in isolation from looking at the other things that are also of concern, of interest, feels a little awkward to me. I feel like I'm making a decision about, asking to be made a decision about a very important safety facility, but not thinking about senior housing or thinking about the school facility that's sitting at the end of a peninsula. And I'm just encouraging us to go back, you know, back to some roots here of a master planning process and do this in a way that we've got an engagement here and have experts to help through that. Because I don't know why I'm doing this in isolation.
Liz, you're not wrong, and that's the conundrum that we have right now, is ideally, there should have been a master plan years ago, but we have a number of major projects that are running parallel paths to each other, and we have to prioritize them. Not only are they running parallel paths, but you heard multiple times this evening, they're at their end of their useful life. As a municipality, we have a requirement to provide public safety. And I'm sure this is going to be taken out of context. We don't necessarily have an obligation or requirement to provide senior housing. Not saying we shouldn't or work on that, but in terms of where we're at right now and the decisions we need to make, we have to move this forward. I don't think, the master plan, probably would talk about public safety. I think more so would talk about developable land, which we don't have either. And that's, you heard tonight, that's one of our other dilemmas, is we don't have a lot of real estate.
It wasn't even given, out of all due respect, I put this one in isolation from the others, and I totally appreciate the need to move things forward, but we don't have the data from which, or the discussion process to do it. We've stalled out for 6 months now on master plan. I don't understand that. I don't understand how we do that. I appreciate the need to keep moving this forward, but how do we do that in isolation?
Yeah, I don't know that we are so much in isolation. I think there are multiple projects that are moving forward. We're relocating Town Hall to the middle school. You'll hear that presentation on February 25th, and I think there'll be other options to relocate other facilities, making those smaller facilities available, not enough space or location for a public safety facility. I think everything that the master plan will provide is that 10-year roadmap, right, in each of those major categories. They're not really projects. It's not really a project-specific document, planning document. So and why the master plan is a bit on hold, but it's going to be picking up in the next couple of months again, and
you don't have to do a master plan in 16 months.
It
right?
does take about 18.
You can reconfigure how that work is done. I know that it feels like more of an umbrella project, but you can do it over the series of weeks, months.
I disagree.
Well, okay.
Yeah, you would not do a comprehensive master plan in a matter of weeks or months. It would take at least, there's a lot that gets covered in a master plan.
I completely understand.
And the community engagement piece and the input, so respectfully, I disagree with the timeline, but.
If I can add also, I just think it would be nice if we could do overall planning and look at every project. There are a lot of projects going on. Our town has a lot of capital and other needs, but I think what we're talking about here really rises to the top when it comes to priority. It doesn't mean we're not looking at other things, but we have to take care of the public safety, which impacts the entire town.
But how do you make an educated guess? I feel like you're asking to make an educated guess on those three options.
No, we're not.
No?
We're not. This is the beginning of a process. We're not asking, no decisions have been made. As Greg showed, this is the beginning of a public engagement process. We'll be authorizing a committee today to begin looking into it. We're not asking anybody to make an educated guess. It's going to be a thoughtful process of public engagement, working with our public safety staff and with town staff to make sure that we get it right. This is our one time to get it right. And we're going to do the best we can to get it right. But we're not asking for any decisions to be made tonight or in the immediate future. But I think we all can agree that our first responders deserve a decent place to work from and a healthful and safe place to work from. And they don't have that now.
I didn't say anything.
No, I'm just saying
I totally agree.
that's the baseline that we're working from.
I understand.
Can I?
Okay. I'm sorry, Jason?
Could I just make one other comment on this? Because I hear what you're saying completely, and I'm the appointee to the Capital Planning Committee, and we've been working over the last year. And I think kind of to the town manager's point, ideally, this process would follow a capital plan, right? Like a capital plan that we've had. But as everybody knows, there was a turnover in the board and in town management a couple of years ago, and we came in without a capital plan, without a master plan, and without a plan for these buildings, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, right, as we all know. And so my preference as well would be, as we're, and it's not been easy to figure out what goes first, as we've had these meetings, right, of, well, are we prioritizing this right away? Well, shouldn't we do the plan and then prioritize? And some of these things, yeah, just to you understand, and to everybody's point, some things I think like this one in particular, can't wait, and a master plan can be revised and a capital plan can be revised, and ideally we wouldn't have to revise it right after we do it. But I just think that's a little bit more context in my perspective.
Yeah.
So
Before I get there, I'd also like to stress what Chief Russo said about the health impacts of the current location. And even if we were to move forward with as much haste as possible, it's still a 3 to 5 year process. So we have to begin that process. And this is the beginning of that process. And remind folks that at a previous town meeting, the funds were approved for this study to begin moving this process forward. So that's where we're at now.
So I'll just echo what you just said, Chris, Mr. Chief Russo. Can you estimate how many firefighters and firewomen that have had cancer down there? Not just generally. Obviously, no names, but it's significant.
It's mind-boggling,
Yeah.
quite frankly, for those that are deceased and those active on the job right now.
So to make this to justify to make this not a big priority as opposed to senior housing. Now, I was the chairman of council agent for 30 years. I know exactly what this town needs, but the money's got to be sent somewhere. I remember going through. I went through the police department, and I remember seeing all sorts of mold down there, which was depressing. But even worse is when I went through the fire department. I went through with the deputy, and he took me upstairs, and he took the it was insulation, and he grabbed the insulation, and all you could see was a black soot. And then I turn around, and there's the bedrooms right there. So I get it myself. So I'm putting my 2 cents into the fact that this right here is a huge priority. This is life or death priority. And also one other question, Chris. I'm not advocating to put it on the HRA land, but you've been a fireman how long? Too long, and then
My call time, about 43 years.
Okay. Have you ever seen HRA flooded?
No. Splash over down there, standing water. But
Again, I'm not advocating that we put it there.
I get it.
But I just, I've been here 40 plus years myself. I've never seen water. I mean, I've seen standing water from rain with the seagulls and everything. I've seen that.
Yeah.
But I've never seen water come over.
Not even when Water Street was underwater. There wasn't water on the back road there. Or, splash over foam, sea foam. But nothing like we've seen this, not like we get cut off down on Fitzpatrick Way, right? Totally different from that splash over there, inundates the roads and cuts us off. Good news this year is the storms we did have, the seawall worked, and we didn't get the water over there, so that's good. So we know that raising elevations and seawalls matter. That was why the HRA site was looked at on that specific end down there, because of the historical data and people that have been in this town for years. I've been here my whole life, and we know. I don't. If we look back, I was asking questions from my brother and a few others. Even when there was houses there, he doesn't recall it ever being flooded there. Clam Alley on the back side, on those big tides and storms, but not on that other side.
Interesting. I'll end it there.
So, great points by, I think Pat brought it up, and I think what Liz is similar points in that it's a decision that's so important, and I fully support this as priority 1, by the way. I think it's the very first thing that should be built, and it should be expedited as quickly as possible. And if we could think about that during the decision-making process, I think it'd be great because, before that was brought up, it's a great point. If we decide this is the best site, we've got to almost build a whole new police station to make that happen, don't we?
Yes.
That's a massive cost. We know we have to demo the entire building. That's a massive cost. But as Pat mentioned, we have to do that demo anyways if we're going to rebuild. But building a new police station or finding temporary is going to be complicated. But can you just talk about how you see this process going forward? Like, how will it play out? The building committee will be started tonight. They will begin, and then how does it kind of follow from there?
The board, I would ask the board to vote this evening on creating that committee. We'll post for it tomorrow. We'll have, usual time frame for applicants. We are asking that people with real estate backgrounds, floodplain management background, finance background, and experience, or I would ask in the recommendation, that's a recommended kind of qualifier for the committee, apply. And then the committees form, they'll work together with our internal team and KBA to roll out the community engagement process, get feedback on the top prioritized locations, and then from there, hopefully we'll narrow it down to a single site, and then we would be able to move into the design phase. We'd have to go to town meeting or special town meeting to seek funding. None of us feel confident enough that we'll be ready or have a site in time for this annual town meeting. And then the process moves forward. Design, permitting, construction.
So it sounds like this building committee will actually make the decision on the final site.
I don't know that they'll make the decision, but they'll certainly help support. I mean, it'll be a combined decision.
Well, they're going to get feedback from the community and obviously get all
They'll
that.
make recommendations on the final site.
They'll support the work of the town in moving the project forward.
Okay. Is there a select board liaison on this?
Yeah, we will. It's on the list.
I'd like to request to join that committee if I might.
Yeah, we'll get to the committee in a moment after we go through, yes, please. Name and
Ann
address.
Murray, 1 Summit Avenue. Just as Pat is concerned, because she lives down the village and she wants response times on her end of town, I live 50 yards from the Cohasset town line, and my concern is, moving a public safety building to L Street Field. I'm not going to be very happy on a hot Saturday if I'm having a heart attack and they're trying to get an ambulance to me down that end of town. So I would not say that that's a centrally located position. Even the HRA, where you're fighting all the summer traffic to try to get up here. And I think it's more than a flood zone. Nobody's even talked about winds. The winds around here during storms are just as much of an issue as the water is. And that HRA is, wide open winds. So I don't see that as a great site for that reason. I worked for another South Shore community that went through having to build public safety buildings. The police office was basically like a 2-story house, very outdated. The fire station was relatively new, but they needed, like you guys do, more space for the larger equipments that couldn't fit in the bays. They needed the turnout gear drying area and all that. And the main thing that drives it is the response times. You have to have the fire department within a certain response time to each area of the town. The reality is Hull is long and narrow, and I don't see putting one building in the middle, quote unquote, as the solution. I really do think you're going to need to have something down this end. Number one. Number two, in their case, they looked at public lands that were within space of the fire station to keep the response times, and they didn't have anything that was big enough, so they ended up having to build a police station further down the street and then add on to the fire station and do it as 2 separate buildings. But a lot of people yelled and screamed and said, oh, it should be a co-located building, it will save on the building costs and whatever. And really, it got sent back to the drawing board several times to look at that. And what was learned over that process is there are a lot of things that you think could be combined space or combined use space that couldn't be combined use. For example, weight rooms, a lounge area, conference rooms. And why is that? Because of HIPAA. Because the EMTs deal with medical things, and you can't have them, going in and lifting weights and saying, oh, I took Joe Blow in the ambulance for this reason or that. It was driven by HIPAA, which, you know, I learned these things along the way, and a lot of people don't know those little details. Just like the police department needs different cells for, you know, adult male, adult female, juvenile, juvenile female, whatever. There are all these new regulations and considerations that have to be built into a new building. So I think people need to be aware of that when you're going through these discussions. And again, you know, if you're somebody who lives in the alphabets, yeah, L Street sounds like Central or A Street sounds Central. But, you know, take a drive from there to the real Green Hill or the real Village, and you're not going to get the response times, especially in traffic.
Good, thank you. I think you've listed a lot of the considerations that will have to be looked into. It was a good, complete list, so thank you. Name and address, please.
Valancourt, 23 A Street. So my single question is, who will make the decision, since we heard from town manager, not the select board, that the committee won't be making the decision?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Who will make the decision on where the ultimate building is sited or buildings?
And that will be a select board and town manager decision. Once all the information is and our consultants make recommendations, and we have a committee that will be looking into it as well.
And Ann brings up a good point. Ultimately, it is town meeting that will decide to move forward on the project.
So it's the recommendation, I'm sorry, I should have said, the recommendation will be made to town meeting. Town meeting will be the final decider.
Thank you.
Sorry, I left that part out, sorry. Yes, name and address, please.
Yes, Susan Bernalia, 17 East Street.
Susan, I'm going to take, after Susan, I'm going to take one more question or comment, and then we will move on. So thank you, Susan.
Bay Ave East, was that the property you said floods? Is that not being considered? Because right around the corner from the A Street Firehouse is Bay Ave East, and there's two buildings there that I think might be vacant.
It was the square footage, it wasn't the location of flooding.
It was the square footage, because it's long, there's two big buildings, that could be a really nice, like,
I know, but when you
public
think
safety
about,
way.
when you set a building in there and you think about just the length of the ladder truck alone, trying to get in the station, the turning radius, just like this town hall site,
Yeah.
is also a problem.
Yeah, I see.
So there's
didn't have the
regulations
depth, Susan.
on radius for backing into a building,
Yeah, yeah.
because we don't have a drive-through station from one end to the other. So that's just one of the considerations over there.
Yeah, I know, that's just, it's right.
It's tight.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it would be a good place if you could do it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful spot.
I'm wondering if the
Yeah.
scoring of this
This way, south.
factored in beach traffic, because if it was on the HRA land, you could really increase your delays in getting to a place because of beach traffic, and that ought to be considered, because if you're trying to get to somebody in the village on a hot sunny day, you might not get out, especially if it's 4 o'clock on a beach day.
I think that exists now.
Well, you're more central now, so
Yeah,
you've
yeah,
got
so-
more people down in this area, and you also have a firehouse here, so you're getting it from both sides.
Right, yeah.
So,
Yeah, for the 2 months, yeah, it's problematic.
so you just don't want to be the one that's didn't get their house burned down because they didn't get there in time.
We tend to move people out of the way pretty good.
The police and fire will cooperate in dealing with the traffic.
Has any consideration been given to the DCR police station that's across from the carousel?
Too small?
I know it's small, but I don't know if there's been any consideration for that, because that building has gone out for RFP and it's open and they're trying to do something with that.
So
Well, the garages.
So I can speak a little bit to it. We didn't study that particular site in depth, primarily because state land like that is often very difficult to transfer from state ownership to town ownership. It's very difficult, surprisingly, and because it's associated with the state park or the state beach. It's likely considered Article 97 land, which means you would have to somehow, even though it's a building, it seems counterintuitive, but you would have to somehow replace it with a like replacement to it. And so then you end up in the situation where, yes, we gained new land that we could build on potentially, but then we now have to find like land to replace it with, and how does the town navigate that through public procurements of land, which is just inherently somewhat difficult. So that kind of ends up falling down the list, and again, same considerations with the other parcels along that way, where flood risk is still there. When you get apart from the HRA properties, the flood risk does tend to increase a little bit, particularly toward the shores. And in some areas, you get into wave action zones, that's I don't want to say a deal breaker, but it's pretty hard to then mitigate those factors once you're into a wave action zone.
Okay, all right. I mean, I just
it's a very good point.
Considering all factors, because you might not have been aware of that. And then the last thing is, I know the planning board usually plans out things for the town. What is their role in this? Are they going to be able to be on this committee? Because they're the planning board. And so what is their role in this process?
So the planning board's role is not actually to plan things for the town. They do site plan review. When this got to construction and maybe even at the end of design, permitting.
Into design,
The planning board would be, that's where they're, go ahead.
So on public projects, primarily, and most projects, planning board typically would like to have some informal or informational meetings first before they're presented a project, particularly of this complexity, to really get into. But their role is really defined in their actual role for the town, which is evaluating presented projects for their compliance or their how they fit in with the town's planning and zoning regulations, and not the overall master plan or things like that of the town. That said, they're a very important piece and have a really relevant role. It's just formally as a board, it's kind of too early for them to be involved, but certainly, as part of just the broader community or entwined in the process, that's certainly a relevant thing. And they bring usually a wealth of knowledge of not only the town, but usually professional backgrounds that are relevant to that area. So
will they be involved in the process then? Is that part of the plan?
Certainly, if they choose to be, we can't. I can't compel a board to be part of the process, but certainly if they'd like to be.
You're saying no?
Well, I think we just explained their role in the process.
Yeah, he said that they
Okay,
usually
we'll take one more question. Comment, question?
77 Hampton Circle. I have a short one. And one of your slides, your name's Greg. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you guys for your service.
Of course.
One of the slides said 67,000 square feet and 52,000 square feet. What is your proposed size for this building? If it was a combined building? And I want to compare that to the Hingham building that I just looked up. There's 48,920 feet.
A combined building, right?
So we haven't come up with the final square footage for the options we proposed yet because the sites change. The programming reflected 67-ish thousand square feet total, but then when you combine the building, you get some savings in terms of square footage. For shared facilities that are appropriate, which we do often, sometimes the gym. So those firefighters need to check their HIPAA rules, but so you do gain some savings in terms of programmatic space, but non-programmatic space, things like mechanical rooms and things like that, you gain some.
So a town of our size needs a station as big as Hingham's, bigger.
Bigger. We're 10,000 people.
I'm not sure. I don't know what the actual square footage of the building, the true size is set on 67.
Well, he's saying the programmatic needs are between 52 and 67.
I think that's realistic based on the equipment this town has right now. So we have, 3 engines, ladder truck, 2 rescues. So based on equipment, not so much personnel, although we're working on that. We need to house it, right? And then you take in the police department, you take in the Sally Port, and you take in their facilities, their jail, and the square foot, it grows exponentially when you start putting them under one roof, for sure. And I think that's what Greg's point, that's why we talked about options of a substation, and other options other than one, gigantic facility that we, all have spoke to the fact the locations of concern for response times. We get that, and that's why we spoke about the ISO ratings for the community and response times based on the NFPA guidelines. So yeah, I don't think we truly know, size. I think that's the top of it, and the bottom of it's probably somewhere down in the 40 or 50,000.
Yeah, and generally, right, as we work through the process, we start with programmatic needs, and as we start to build out the options, they generally get more efficient. So you start kind of high with all the needs, and eventually as you get into designs, they actually end up being more efficient than you had originally planned. And that doesn't, we don't get there until the designs have really gone into
And then
full
my
fruition.
final question / comment was that multiple of you, including Jen, have said, we've not yet decided that it's the HRA land, but really all the opinions seem to be pointing to that land. So if that was off the table, what would your second choice be?
I mean, so in terms of the public safety building, the departments have really identified this site as the other site
By
that they
this site,
feel
do you
like
mean the one we're sitting in?
the one we're sitting in right now as the one that worked. So of the 6 options, the departments have identified 3. Sorry, back and forth. The first 3 that they feel are most relevant. And 2 of those options include this site. One of them includes the HRA site. The first 2 options, this site stays essentially the same. The substation is what changes. To your point about responses to both sides of town, all 3 options that the departments have identified as ones they think are relevant include 2 fire locations, which covers the response time to both ends of town. Obviously the option here has a stronger pull to the south. The HRA land brings those 2 options closer to the center, but still distant enough apart where they get good responses out to the ends, but then have a slightly better crossing response when one is out on a call. If you have a second call, that crossing response gets slightly better. That said, these 3 options are very relevant options and need to be considered fully.
I'd like
The
to.
PFAS go when they're on HRA land right there next to the wetlands or here. Where do they go after you guys?
For the decon?
Yeah, like environmentally.
Yeah, so he talked about catching runoff water for decon. There's laws that you can speak to better than me.
So
they have to catch that decon water, materials, anything we use, even cleaning the engines, right? Residuals that come off the trucks. That has to be captured out. It's clearly not captured at A Street. If it is, it's going to the ground and they're getting it down at the boat ramp. And that's part of the process there. And it's a good question. It really is. We've never had a legitimate decon site, to be quite frank. We've been using the hose behind the firehouse.
You use it, yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to remind folks, this is the beginning of the public engagement process. There'll be many, many more opportunities for input, questions, and discussions. But at this point, I would like to propose the Public Safety Feasibility Study Committee. Just would like to read a description of that and the charge. Public Safety Feasibility Study to explore the planning for a joint police-fire public safety facility. The Select Board will seek to constitute a public safety building committee to collaborate with the town throughout the feasibility study process, as well as the subsequent design and construction phases. The charge of the committee is to support the evaluation of suitable locations for a combined public safety facility as identified in the Hull Public Safety Feasibility Study for recommendation to the town. We'll work with town manager and town officials to obtain owner's project manager and architectural services Services and to assist with supporting the design, construction, and commission of a facility suitable for the current and future public safety needs of the town of Hull. The committee will also work with town officials to carry out community engagement efforts associated with the project. We're recommending a 9-member committee that will be comprised of 1 representative of the police department, 1 representative of the fire department, town manager or designee, 1 representative of the select board, 1 representative of the advisory board, and 4 residents at large. We'll be looking for people with development, project management, relevant experience, and assuming this will be approved tonight, we will begin advertising for applications for people interested in that committee. So I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
And I'll second.
Moved by Gray, seconded by McCann. Any discussion on the committee? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. So the committee, we will constitute this committee as soon as possible and continue with as much public engagement as possible so that all questions and concerns are addressed and hopefully answered. Greg, thank you so much for your report. It was really quite both concise and informative. And I'd like to thank Chief Dunn and Chief Russo for all the work you've put into it and your staff up to this point and continuing to look forward to working on this. Thank you all.
Thank you all, and thank you for the public for coming out and participating in the process. It's very helpful to hear, what people think, and we can always engage them further and also incorporate thoughts into the ultimate design.
Great.
Thank you.
So if you don't mind, I just have one quick question while you're here. I'm looking at the existing conditions, and that, what would be helpful going forward, and I'm assuming, you guys will be working on this as you go forward, but the square footage of, it says, of town hall and public safety currently stands at 27,000 square feet, right?
Approximately, yes.
But you don't delineate what the current police station square footage is. So that would be helpful, right?
Sure.
It looks like the fire department currently stands at almost 6,000 square feet. So again, existing conditions, what we currently have, it sounds like we're going to be doubling or tripling the space potentially, and seeing what those increases are would be very helpful as well.
Certainly.
Great. Thank you again. Okay, good. Move on.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I'm leaving.
Jen, this report be put up on the website?
Waterfront access.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the Waterfront Access Study Committee.
Thank you.
Yeah, good night.
Stretch break, just everybody?
You look like you're stretching already.
First long meeting.
My co-chair just left the room, so I gotta make some.
Well, you're on.
I'll get him back.
He's here.
Should we convene since there is a quorum of us here? Do you want to?
We have to.
We should.
Yeah.
We did post. Matt posted for us.
Okay, you have-
We weren't sure, but
Well, me and Jason are on the.
Oh, okay. Scott, would you like to call your committee to order?
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At 8:49, we convene the meeting of the Waterfront Access Study Group. We have members present: Susan Short Green, David Kellum, Scott Taylor, Jason McCann.
And me.
I'd love to have everybody on. Great. So, is there anyone on this? No, thank you. So we have 2 meetings running. We're here to continue. There's been a great deal of effort that began 30 years ago with the waterfront management study that was done in 1996. David, we have something to distribute.
Yes, if I may. I don't know I'm not sure if you received a version of this proposal for our, it basically explains.
It is in their packets, actually.
Yeah, we got it.
Let me see.
211.
Yep.
Second to last
There
page.
were some typos in paragraph 3, in terms of the council on aging.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Called the
Sure, sure.
council of elders, unfortunately. And this is just a little update to correct those typos in the beach.
Thanks, Dave.
Management advisory committee, it's called the beach manager, the beach. Thank you.
So,
Thank you. And if people want to pass,
yeah, I'll pass it on this side.
so then if you want to Susan.
So in essence, the Waterfront Access Study Group was formed in 2024 to consider and advise the members of our town governments as well as the public on the merits of the Waterfront Access Study that was done by the Woods Hole Group, and that was I believe, begun in 2023. It's already been demonstrated that our 168 access points on the 27 miles of coastline they're not all on the Nantasket Beach. In fact, I think there are 55 on North Nantasket Beach, there are 15 on the DCR, the balance are on the other 5 bodies of water. We've got Boston Roads, we have Hull, Hingham Bay, we've got the Weir River and Straits Pond, as well as the Atlantic Avenue Green Hill area. So the Woods Hole Group study presented us with all of those points, and I think that the best way to describe it is that those access points, which I think we've identified 108 town-owned or controlled access points, most of which have been in use continuously, many of which have been in decline. We did present a study to the town in October of 2025, which was very well received and I think if not unanimously, widely supported. Our proposal is to continue to reformulate, for lack of a better term, the Waterfront Access Study Group into the Waterfront Access Advisory Committee.
Yep.
And use a format essentially the same as what we use to prepare the recommendations for the town that were presented in October. But we'd like to make things happen. And clearly there are many bigger dollar projects in process, but this is Hull's waterfront is really one of its prime attractions. And we believe that there are solutions, neighborhood by neighborhood, access point by access point, for most of these sites. So, David, would you take over?
Sure. So essentially, maybe I should read for the general public in the record what we're looking to do. So we voted unanimously as a 9-member committee to continue as an advisory committee / implementation committee. And we are proposing that the prior committee, which I believe was appointed jointly by the planning board and the board of select board.
Just the planning board.
It was just the planning board. So we're proposing to, if we become a permanent advisory board, that we shift who we respond to the select board rather than to the planning board, that this be a select board committee. But we're proposing that the same committee structure stay in effect. And that would be that it would include 9 members, 2 at-large members appointed by the select board, a member of the Conservation Commission, a member of the Park and Recreation Commission, a member of the Planning Board, 1 member of the Beach Management Advisory Committee, 1 member of the Ware River Estuary Park Committee, 1 member of the Council on Aging. Each one of those board/departments would appoint or designate their member. The select board would designate the two at-large citizen members. And for our charge, what we're proposing is that the Hull Waterfront Access Advisory Committee shall provide advice and assistance to the Select Board in achieving the implementation of the goals and recommendation of the working group's final report. That was the report we presented back in October. The committee shall perform such other functions as may be requested by the Select Board in furtherance of those goals. And the committee may also, at its own initiative, develop action plans, recommendations, and proposals for presentation to and approval by the Select Board. So we want to work for you, and we want to work on behalf of you, and we want to also have the authority to work among ourselves to address the issues of waterfront access, maintenance, repair, improvement, development in the town, so that we can then take that work that we do and present it to you for implementation and advice. So I think that's the sum and the substance of what we're proposing to do.
Great. Well, first, thank you to the Access Study Group for the work that you've done and your willingness to stay on and continue in a different role. Anytime folks want to get involved and help the town, we're greatly appreciative of that. So thank you. Any questions?
I just wanted to say thank you for coming forward. I think I've mentioned in the past, this is one of the best, committees or working groups I've ever been on. We all put in a lot of work. When we did that presentation in September, I agree, I think it was very well received. David communicated our plan very clearly and in an inspirational way, I think, as well. And, each of us took a section of all these 100 some odd sites and, all did different sections of the town and came up with this report. And just everybody is on board for continuing, I think myself included as a select board rep. I know, like you said, some of the other people from the other committees as well. And there's been discussions with the town manager, with myself, as it relates to the capital committee, and we're developing that. Because I think with the waterfront access points, it really, to have this kind of continued champion will be really excellent and kind of fill a missing need, because some of the things we identified in terms of identification and stenciling, require, working that through as we have been working that through, figuring out a funding source, bringing it to the town for approval on town property, bringing it to the Community Preservation Committee if that's how we want to fund it, or finding another source. Other things that are much more significant, some of the projects, some of the stairways, some of the other access points, as we know, are, could be several $1 million projects. And now that we have a capital planning process that we're creating, I think anything that's $50,000 or more in cost and over 5 years of lifespan has to then get filtered into our capital review process, and having that champion from an organized group that will then bring it to our committee, bring it back out also to town staff. Matt Sullivan has been kind of working with the group, and I think has offered to continue to be helpful in an advisory capacity, so that those projects can turn to real projects that town staff can help move forward as it's prioritized, and the many, many capital needs that we have, which include something quite major that we just discussed. So all to say, I think it's a great plan. I'm grateful that everybody wants to continue, and that's, I think, also how I see, and I think we all are in agreement how it'll continue and why it'll be so useful. So thank you.
I have a thought. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit projects that can be done really quick. My thought is to add maybe the community development and planning department under your guidance, so you don't constantly have to come back to the select board for those really low-cost projects. Like if it's stenciling, I just don't want to see it get caught up in having to come back as an agenda item. I don't know, I just want to make sure the language is there so they can do some work outside of having to come up here.
Yeah, I don't think that's entirely necessary, because the projects are going to vary. So, for example, although maybe we pulled it from CPA, through the town, we're going to be moving forward the stenciling project. So that didn't need to come back to the select board, for example. We have the full list of potential projects that have not necessarily incorporated into the capital plan yet, but it's part of our universe of capital projects. And I know we've discussed some of the a project or two that you think the committee, you'll champion with the committee
Yes.
to move forward. And so it'll depend on the site and, what approvals are needed.
I think you've expressed it well. Each one of these sites, as we all know, who live and recreate in this town, each one has unique considerations, and there are neighborhood concerns, there are advantages and disadvantages, there are limitations on each one of them. And much of that is going to require I don't think it's going to require huge amounts of money for the low-hanging fruit, but it is going to take coordination. There's public safety involvement, we've got police and fire considerations that have to be managed, DPW concerns. It's the coordination that under the guise of the select board and the town manager, we believe that we can accomplish those projects. And without huge, in many cases, without huge investments. There are some big opportunities which are also identified in that report, which will take more money, longer time, and involvement at other levels. But Craig, I believe we can get this done. With this group of people, with the support that we've all heard expressed in the community and that we've received here. I think we can make this happen with your support and with your blessings, if you will.
I think also clearly not all projects or recommendations are going to have to go through the select board. Some could just be maintenance issues or within town department budgets or whatever that could be done.
Yes.
Anything larger than that would come to the select board, but it seems to me many of them can, when they're identified, could move forward in that way.
So we're asking for discretion and to be able to take them one project at a time and then come back to the board as required, as necessary.
Right.
I mean, I would probably liken it in a lot of ways to the beautification committee. So the beautification committee meets, they want to do a beach cleanup. It doesn't necessarily need to come, they'll reach out to my office, we coordinate, doesn't necessarily need to come before the select board. It's similar. Hate to use this one as an example, stairs at Western Ave, that's a larger, more in-depth, that requires multiple departments. You would likely reach this level.
So should we just say town manager / select board? So this gives the flexibility.
Thank you.
Just come back to the town manager on those low,
I think.
because it only says select board.
Oh, shall provide.
That's what my
advice and
point was.
assistance.
I just wanted.
Maybe I would just say provide
Paragraph is-
advice and
Down bottom,
assistance to the town.
Recommendations, proposed presentation for
Yeah,
approval.
when you say
Yeah.
select board, a decision needs to be made at this level, and not every decision needs to be made at this level.
You could just leave that sentence at approval, right? Proposals for presentation to and approval to appropriate, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Appropriate authority or, yeah,
Advice and assistance.
it's the last sentence of the charge.
Yeah, I mean, you could even just take out who it's to or for. I mean, this is
Oh.
a committee created by the select board,
Yeah.
right? So, there's also that piece.
Right.
Like, that's what we just did with the Public Safety Committee.
Mhm.
You have it's created by us. So,
Oh, I see,
You know what I mean? So it doesn't need
Yeah.
to say in the charge.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
I think you could you could take out by the select board and end at approval in the first sentence, provide assistance to the town in achieving implementation goals.
Perfect.
And then you can keep the select board in the middle because you may have a request.
Yes.
Committee
Yeah.
shall perform.
Is that acceptable?
Yeah, I think my only concern, just to discuss would be, let's say that the Conservation Commission, the Planning Board, and the Beautification Committee all asked us to do a project for them to look into, can they all initiate projects for us to undertake? And if so, how do we set priorities, or who sets priorities for that? So I think that's why I was envisioning it coming from the umbrella of the Select Board, but
I think that's where the person who's, this committee doesn't just have a liaison, it has an appointed person, right? So the person who's appointed from the Select Board will, I've seen at the meetings, of course, like, Susan has a thought, somebody from the Conservation Commission. If, I've tried to guide us, as I think any appointed Select Board member would, to say, oh, wait, for this part, we got to come back to the board as a whole. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I think if this were a board that had a liaison, but if there's an appointed member of the one of us, that's our job and responsibility.
And David, I think some of the projects are going to have to go through capital planning, which does go through my office, and will also have that layer of the capital improvement committee, because they're going to require funding.
Yes.
And the committee doesn't have, that's a town decision, right?
And I'm on that committee too.
So all you need to do is speak to Jason.
Just talk to me.
Great. Any further discussion?
So I'll be brief. This is great, by the way. I think this is a great idea. When we had that meeting, the program that you guys did back in the fall, it was great, but you guys were only called a study group at the time. So after you finished, I think I even said to Jerry, I think Greg, whoever I was sitting, he's like, wait a minute, we got to make these people a committee, So we have more tasks and issues at hand, and you guys seem to really have it all together. I mean, some committees are better than others, blah, 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 and it's like everything in life, but you guys really hit it out of the ballpark that night. Because I remember, Dave, you did a great job, by the way, as well. But I remember, days later, I go wherever I go to Riddles or whatever, the hardware store, whatever, people were talking about it. A lot of people were interested in what's going on, and they were impressed, and I don't speak for the board, I think I speak for the board. We were very impressed with that, so we're glad that you guys want to continue, and women, want to continue on in helping the town, so thanks.
It's truly a great group effort, and we want to continue that. We need to wrap more town functions, departments into this process to make it work. And again, as I say, it's a access point by access point, neighborhood by neighborhood. It's going to take time. Let's keep it going.
Great. Any other thoughts? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Just real quick, much appreciated, phenomenal presentation when we saw it last, but I'll use one that's very close to me as an example, in between 6th and 7th Street.
Yep.
Going out, looking right at World's End.
Yep.
Very narrow.
Right.
But it's big enough to wheel a kayak down and go out and, enjoy the area. So it sounds like, and you've had a passionate supporter in Mr. McCann here throughout the whole process. He talked about it quite a bit. So, and what was the term at the end of that was presented? Was the emerald necklace, or was it?
The aqua necklace.
Aqua necklace.
Would you care to talk more about that?
No.
I think there was some controversy on that one.
What I envision, what I think what you guys are looking to do is really just highlight these, right? Identify them on the map, clean up each site one by one, and you're right, it's going to take. You have to look at them as individual projects, because they're all completely different. So.
There are limitations and advantages to each one. It has to be clearly understood, identified, and the town informed to those advantages and limitations. So that's why I say it's point by point, neighborhood by neighborhood. It's going to take some time, and this group.
But we do. We want to think about it as a unified park concept, really. Just of individual points, and that's the goal.
So very quick, so there's 9 of you still right now?
Yes.
And did anybody drop off, or you still have all 9?
Everybody wants to stay.
It's
Makes the job easier.
Yeah.
We do have to reappoint the two.
I think you have to reappoint.
You're going to have to go through the
Post and
same
reappoint, yeah.
Okay,
process.
we'll
That's certainly
post,
not large.
we'll post for those as well. Okay. Any other comments? If not, I will entertain a motion to form the committee.
I'll make a motion to establish the Waterfront Access Advisory Committee with the composition and charge presented by the committee with the amendments we discussed regarding the charge. And I have the markup for that.
Oh.
Great.
And I
Is
will
there a
second, I'll second that.
Okay, made by McCann, seconded by Gray. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Again, thank you so much. Your work is much appreciated.
Maybe get rid of that livery badge.
Yeah. Have a application for renewal.
No, you tell me too much.
It is new. Well,
If I didn't already
I
have
seconded
a
it.
big ego, I'd have a big ego.
In the back.
Good night.
William Simmons, 37 Bates.
Thank you.
Okay. We have an application for William Simmons for a livery badge for Bay State Coach. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Gray, seconded by McCarthy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. It is approved. Final item on the agenda is to the review of town manager annual evaluation. I just want to review the process of that. The town manager did a self-evaluation, and each board member did their own evaluation. It is expected that each board member would do their due diligence, which included meeting with the town manager and also gathering input from residents. And all of us serve as liaison to committees, so we get the feedback from the committees as well. All of that has gone into this evaluation. Further, how the process works is we each submit our individual evaluations. They're submitted to Labor Council, who then presents a summary compilation of that. We, as a group and as individuals, have not been permitted to share our evaluations with each other. So what we have to discuss tonight is the compilation that was prepared by Labor Council, and then all of those materials will become part of the town manager's personnel file. This is a board process, so it is, while we're doing it in public, because it is a public informational process as well, we won't be accepting or soliciting input at this point. This is for the board to review the summary compilation. So I will very quickly go through it. We've all seen it. There are 10 areas where the town manager is evaluated on, and it's on a grading scale of 1 to 5. And I'll go through each one, just what the results were. On individual characteristics, the board compilation showed that the town manager achieved all expected standards. On professional skills and status, achieved expected standards. On policy execution, achieved expected standards. I'm sorry, let me go. I'm skipping around because there are some others I'd like to focus on. On staffing, achieved, expected, and exceeded, both achieved and exceeded in some of the areas. On supervision, same thing, achieved and exceeded standards, expected standards. And on fiscal management, achieved expected standards. There are three areas where it was determined that there was more ongoing work that was needed. Those three areas were relations with elected members of the governing body, on reporting, and on citizen relations. I'm going to make a proposal after I go over this. On prior year accomplishments, the town manager achieved the goals that was set out, including advancing the paving plan, moving that forward, instituting online permitting, licensing and asset management software, funded the master plan, achieved grant award to develop a regional response and recovery plan, selected the OPM and advanced relocation efforts of Town Hall to Memorial Middle School, These are prior year accomplishments: successful negotiation of 5 collective bargaining agreements, procured a firm to conduct a joint public safety feasibility study, which we were presented with tonight, work on the Nantasket Avenue seawall, which is nearing completion, and the successful mediation of the Crescent Beach seawall litigation case, which has finally been decided, and the town increased the amount of funds that were requested and were offered. So that project will begin again once all the preliminary work is done. Objectives for the coming year: complete the 5-year capital improvement plan, add modules to the open government software, including finance and capital planning, optimize the town's movement to the cloud, which will improve internal efficiencies and workflows. We'll continue to offer professional development and training opportunities for staff, and advance with town meeting approval the public safety facility, again, that we were presented with today. Excuse me. On the 3 areas where it was determined that they were ongoing and more attention was needed to those, I would like to propose tonight, and this was in a discussion with our personnel and labor attorney, that we seek assistance from the ICMA or the Massachusetts Municipal Managers Association to help facilitate a process with the board and the town manager to better understand the roles of both positions and how we can work together more closely and work together to advance the town's needs. I want to stress this is not an unusual process. Many organizations do that. I've been involved in a number of organizations, both on the executive level and the board level, where we bring in outside people to help facilitate discussions between boards and staff to move that process forward and make sure that it's a positive working relationship. That does not say, and I do want to be clear, this does not at all say that we don't have a positive working relationship. We want to move towards, we want everything to move towards excellence, and that's what this is. There'll always be room for improvement, and we want to close that gap and continue to work towards excellence in town management and oversight. These 2 organizations do have folks that can provide this. We assume at this point that it would be without cost, because that's what both of these organizations are there for. After that process, we would then, I'm suggesting that we have a 3 and 6 month informal evaluation to see how that's moved along, and if both sides are advancing what we've learned or what we've discussed in that facilitation process. But I do want to stress that on 7 out of 10 of these evaluation points, the town manager has either achieved or exceeded all measurements. The town, there are a lot of projects that the town manager is managing, a lot of capital projects, a lot of large projects, and we have a balanced budget for the last couple of years, and we hope we'll have a balanced, we expect to have a balanced budget presented again. So I think overall, the town manager's work in managing the town, which is what the town manager does, is more than acceptable. And as I said, from the measures of the 5 board members, the compilation is that she has achieved or exceeded in 7 of those 10 measures, which I think is an excellent evaluation. I'd like to open it up to the board. If there are any comments, I do want to remind the board, though, that we cannot refer to our own individual assessments at this point. We can only respond to this compilation that was presented to us. I think I'll just go around and give everybody an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think you gave a fair summary. I reviewed the summary as well and the scoring. Yeah, I would just echo everything that you shared, and I think when it comes to the 3 particular criteria, they are kind of relationship-based, and so I think the process that you recommended of bringing in a professional facilitator and kind of evaluating after that makes a lot of sense. Those are criteria related to the relationship with us, the relationship with citizens, the reporting piece, so I think that would be beneficial, so I support the proposal, but also, do want to share that, like Erwin has said, this is a combined, review. It has to be. There's no one of us. We're not 5 mayors. We're one voice here, and that can get thorny and complicated, and this is probably one of the more complicated processes that we have to go through, but my understanding is that everybody put in a good faith effort, and I know that the town manager did as well with their self-evaluation, and so this feels like a fair process, most importantly a professional one, which I think people have to kind of understand. The town manager is hired under a contract. She is a professional. We are employers, and we have to act professionally through this process. And so those are my thoughts, those are my comments, and I like the proposal that the chair has put forward.
Great. My turn. First off, I'd like to thank you for a great job. I think since you've been on board, you've made a lot of incredible changes, a lot of great progress. And again, Erwin and I were part of that process. We made the right decision. That's what I feel. Relations, so I just want to touch on those 3 subjects just a little. I know it's just a report, and I'm fine with moving forward the way he suggested. I have a great relationship with our town manager. And when it comes to, I guess we're talking about reports, that's a 2-way street. You're very busy. Sometimes you just don't have time. But we have a phone. We have a way of calling. We can reach out. And not all the time is everything going to be perfect. Citizens relations, that's another one that I'm sensitive to. But I've been on this board 8 years. I've probably had 10 complaints to myself. So my perspective is, although I guess we need to work on these a little bit, it's a 2-way street with all of us. And if there are citizen issues of response time or whatever it may be, that needs to maybe CC'd to us. If the members of the community are reaching out to our town manager, CC us so we see it. Now, I don't see it as an issue, but again, thank you for all you've done. Appreciate your work. As Erwin said, as Jason said, it shows in the evaluation, so thank you.
I just wanted to add one thing before we go around. I'm under the impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, previous town manager, we didn't do, the board did not do evaluations. And our current town manager, Jen, one of the first things she asked for was an annual evaluation. So this is a process that really gives us an opportunity to see where we need, what needs to be worked on, what's going well. And I do want to applaud you for being, it may or may not have happened anyway. I hope it would have happened anyway, but for you to insist on it, I think, was an excellent thing. And that this is the second evaluation. We had a town manager for many, many years, and there was no evaluation, and this process didn't happen. And we developed this process last year, and the board approved this based on the input also from our labor attorney. So this is the same process that we used last year. Turn it over to you.
So I don't have much. You've probably covered, you two covered it so much. Greg, I appreciate your thoughts as well. I know where you're coming from. But Jason, you kind of hit it. You're right with me. I don't want to. Again, I don't want to rehash. So I like the process that we're going to go through, and we. The last town manager had his reign for so many years, and now so let's move forward with the good things that we're doing, and the things that we need to work on. We work on.
That's what we're here for. Thank you, Jerry.
So, the one thing I'm going to point out is what's different about this evaluation from last year's was the, I'll call it the random lottery selection of being able to speak to some department heads. We didn't do that this year. I don't know if the chair maybe can speak to that. That's the one thing that I see is
Well,
is different.
What happened last year, out of 5 board members, only 3 wanted to participate in that process. So at this point, we left it open to folks who wanted to talk to department heads. That was up to them. 2 of the members at that point said, we don't need to do it, we do it all the time. So we all have access to department heads, so I didn't include that process again.
Okay, that's fair.
Well, for the record, I was one of them. Again, I don't get around the Hingham Rotary too well, so, too much, so, I speak to town officials, on a weekly basis, A lot of issues out there where you have to talk to, see, Bob Kelly was here earlier, Chris Russo was here earlier, so, I mean, I know, so, I mean, I don't think I need to sit down with somebody, because, when if you would put me up with someone, say, I don't know, on the planning board or zoning, and I don't know them, I don't know if I'm gonna get the right vibe from them, because they, Jen is their boss. So that's, to me, that's the way how I look. Again, I'm not in municipal government, I'm 360 degrees, my business is different. So, but that's the way I look at things, moving forward, so.
Right, thank you.
I feel like you interrupted me, so just
Sorry.
Just joking. But no, I read the summary report as well. I guess I do disagree. It's I don't know if there's no cost in this consultant. It sounds like it's going to be multiple meetings to have this select board meet with the town manager and an outside consultant to 2.5 years later discuss how we need to improve the relationship. I just, I feel like that can be done without the consultant, with us alone, just meeting maybe 10, 15 minutes after each meeting or something like that. But again, that's just my opinion. I think incurring additional costs to ask Labor Council to be involved in this and then going out to find and source the right, again, it's just my opinion. I know the rest of the board disagrees and I respect that. So I don't know what this means. I'm still a little confused on the process because my understanding is it's that time of year for this assessment and, discussions on that, which sounds like we're going to do 3 months out and then 6 months out, an informal reassessment and then just a conversation? Okay.
Well, I don't think, just to be clear, it wasn't a complete, I think it's just a check-in on those 3 areas.
Yeah.
That's what I meant by
After.
informal. Yeah. It would be checking in on those 3 areas after the facilitation is done. I do want to reiterate that it's, at this point, looks like, as my understanding is, either of those 2 organizations have people that do this, and it would be at no cost. If it is at cost, then we would have to come back to the board to do that. I think also, to me, this is a good time to do it. I think the town manager stepped into a very busy time with a lot of projects going on and a lot of, I don't want this to come out wrong, that things weren't done with no thought, but a lot of it was really putting one foot in front of the other, moving things along and making sure that things happened. There wasn't a lot of time for us to sit down and have a conversation about how do we work with the town manager? How does the town manager work with us? I think it's been going well, but there are these areas that came up, and I think they're worth addressing. Which again is not to say that it's a problem on either side, but how do we improve that communication and that relationship? So for me, I think it's worth it. Like I said, I've been involved both as an exec and board members in a number of organizations, and this is not an unusual thing for board and executive staff to get together and have these facilitated discussions. There are a whole bunch of private consultants that do that. Hopefully we won't go that route. We'll be able to get a consultant from either the ICMA or the Mass Managers Association.
Just a final question. Do you have any idea, like an anticipated number of meetings that would be meeting to discuss all this?
That would be the first discussion we would have with the person, right?
I didn't know it would be like, planned to be like once a month, every 2 weeks or so. Or...
That's for us to decide once we have that person. I think that's a legitimate question and a good place to start.
Was that a silly question?
Not at all.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, my guess would be it's probably a session or 2.
Yeah, I don't think
I mean, I
it's
think
good.
it's, yeah.
I think after that, it would just be a matter of having conversations about what those sessions were, so that you have
Yeah.
an interactive dialogue to
Yeah.
see if there's improvement.
And maybe what you said also is that we have these conversations after meetings, before meetings, whatever.
Yeah, I think that'd be.
After that, as we move along, to make sure that we're all on board and moving in the right direction.
And I was just saying, I think we should do whatever we need to do. I mean, I don't think this is a significant cost burden. I think, again, I want to treat this process extraordinarily professionally. I think the town manager deserves that. I think, what Erwin was reading from, the list of categories, the summary report, her professionalism is unimpeachable with our collective review. And even if that weren't the case, I think it's important for us to act and behave that way. And, to follow on what Erwin was saying, we've had these meetings and we've had other people kind of join us, but yeah, we were kind of just hitting the ground running. We wanted to make sure we had, a plan for the year ahead. We had stuff we had to do. There are things that were backed up that needed to be done. When we met as a group, okay, what are we going to talk about for the next year? We have something that came out of this process that is substantive, that is important to work through, and to have clarified, focused meetings on that piece, I think is extraordinarily, important and to the benefit of not just, us, but to the town as a whole. I've seen, you read in the news, you see other towns that go through horrible processes with governance, and, some not too far from us, and I don't think we have gotten there, and I don't ever want to get there, and I think it's easy to do that when you move away from a process that's as professional as it can be. So, again, I just agree.
Well said.
So I think I would entertain a motion then to approve the plan for a facilitated process through either one of those two organizations, and then the informal updates at 3 months and 6 months to see how it's going.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved by McCarthy, seconded by McCann. I think we've had enough discussion on it, so I'll take.
So just last question, the whole assessment process just ends now and we pick it back up again in 6 months? That's accurate, yeah?
Yeah, this is the end of it. Then this compilation and our individual go into the town manager's personnel file. And then actually, once this is put away, we need to begin contract, moving forward in the contract, which is up, I think, in August, and we're supposed to start 6 months before. So that's our next our next step.
But that's my question, that'd be starting 6 months from now?
What's that? The contract negotiation? No, that's got to start now because.
That's my assumption.
Yeah, the contract is up in
going,
August.
yeah.
So there'll be parallel processes going on.
Makes sense now, okay,
Great.
thank you.
We didn't take a vote. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, I'm a no, I
Opposed?
think. I'm gonna stick with my no on that one.
Okay, 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Great, thank you. Okay, I think with that said, we move on to updates. Did we get everything? Yes. Town manager update?
So a few updates. So in terms of goings on at Town Hall, we've just been, again, focused on final budget meetings with department heads. I anticipate presenting the final budget at the board's February 25th meeting. We did start the capital improvement committee meetings with department heads. We started with Chris Gardner from DPW projects, and John Struzzieri, who also serves as the assistant DPW director and focused on pavement management plan, Manomet-Samoset project. I think, I'm looking at Jason because he's on that committee, I think that the meeting went very well.
Yeah.
I will say it actually even felt a little bit like a load off, because it was nice to have the departments there talking about their work and talking not just about the work, but about the numbers associated with projects, and have good communication back and forth about, what's going on, and have the committee answer questions. We discovered at the meeting that at least 3 of us were talking about the same thing, but looking at it, but 3 different things too. So it was really helpful, and I think it was, like I said, a good opportunity for the departments to highlight their work and the committee to ask questions that you might hear fumbling around Facebook or other places, but to actually have that opportunity face-to-face.
Yeah, I
with
thought
the
Chris and
departments.
John were also great and very patient in terms of, talking a little bit more as a window into their operations as well. And obviously, that's not the point, entirely the point of the committee, but having dedicated department sessions where they're talking about where they're at with their capital needs and how that intersects with their, operational requirements, operational challenges. I thought that was great. And I definitely just encourage, any other, they're all public meetings, and our next one is tomorrow, and it's for the municipal light plant.
He couldn't make that meeting, so it'll be some town projects, and
Yeah.
I forget the department that's coming in,
But
sorry.
it's on the calendar. But yeah, no, I agree.
The warrant closes, deadline is tomorrow, February 12th, for citizens petitions. We have open meeting law training coming up for all committee board members, staff, anyone that participates in town government.
Can I ask a question on that? Is that different from ethics training?
Yes.
It
It's
is?
open meeting law training.
Okay. It's not covered in the ethics training at all?
No.
Okay.
I don't know if the ethics training has a
A
component. I
little
mean,
bit,
they're
just a
separate,
little
they're
bit, but
separate
it doesn't go-
topics,
it
but
doesn't go into detail
It
on
may,
it,
yeah.
It's a small component, but this is actually a training on all of the open meeting law, so it'll cover a lot more.
Is it for all departments? All boards and committees, rather?
Yes.
Anybody wants to show up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's voluntary.
Yep, it is voluntary, but it's recommended, and I think just as the board was talking about, the facilitator and that training, I'd like to see these trainings happen on an annual basis because committees and boards turn over regularly. People forget things that you don't use on a daily basis, and I think this is just a good portion, a good way to have a sound government.
Could you give the date, time, and location?
February 24th at 6 p.m. at Memorial Middle School.
And we're almost, maybe by then, be able to get out the committee handbook.
Yes, I can. Yes, yes. We can
Checking
do
for
that.
Susan.
We can do that. The minutes didn't, yes, well, I can talk
We
about
got
it after. What else was I gonna, ferry parking, I just wanted to mention that. I'm sure they're not watching, but thank the T for keeping us posted. It's sort of been a day-to-day, issue where the harbor is frozen and they're not able to get the vessels out from Hingham. So the Hingham site's been closed, but they've communicated to us when, a day ahead, when Hingham will be closed. We did work with them and the T and DCR to open up Lot E for commuter parking, as well as add a bus and extra ferry capacity so that if there was an influx of Hingham or other non-resident commuters, they had a place to park, they had capacity on the ferries, and they could still use the ferry system. So that information is shared on the T site as well as the town's website and Facebook pages.
So Jen, that's not something that the town creates, that's something that the T creates, and then we kind of, for a better word,
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, it was a collaborative effort. We reached out to the T and said, hey, look, we have limited parking here in Hull. Back in 2015, we did implement this. We opened the DCR lots. The T brought in a bus to help shuttle people back and forth. That was a longer, tougher winter, and hopefully we're not on that path. And we met that next morning, actually, and by that afternoon, they had the buses secured. DCR hopped on the call, said we can open up Lot E. We couldn't use G this year, or in this instance for it, and we'll take it by day. And yeah, but it's their bus. It's not our buses. It's not our lot.
correct, so, yeah.
It's our constraints here, and
Yeah, but we're
we did reach
reactive
out.
to it. We're not the ones that implement it. We're the reactionary.
Yep, yeah, we asked them to
Or
implement it. They
secondary,
did, and
Yeah, okay.
I really appreciate that because I think some of the things I've been hearing, and people I know who are taking the boat definitely appreciate it. But I think a lot of people I know do understand, like, this has been a day-to-day decision by the T. Literally every day they're announcing the next day that the Hingham dock is closed. And I think, I don't remember in 12 years this ever having this many days where they make the decision to close a service line due to ice. So it's just an unusual event, an unusual year. And I think everybody's just kind of thinking, oh, that's just a one-off, that's just a one-off, but it keeps being an additional one-off. So
Yeah.
I appreciate the preparation, and I think everybody else does as well.
Do we know if people have
It's
been
getting out
using
there.
that service?
I don't honestly know. I'm not sure. But it's available, and the T was great at pushing out this message to the commuters on the ferry. So it wasn't just like, hopefully somebody sees it on Facebook or a town website. They had the captains announce it. I don't know, they may have put out, typically, a lot of times they'll put out flyers on the tables on the ferries just to sort of spread the word.
This new person who's the head of ferries, because the MBTA until like, what was it, 2 years ago, didn't have a head of ferries on staff.
Yep.
It was somebody more general, and they just managed the contract. But this person, David Perry, is super responsive, forward thinking.
Yeah, I mean, Jason, after years of advocating recognition that the ferry system is part of the overall MBTA transportation system, they're finally there. And, it's just continuing to improve from my perspective. Yeah. Other than that, I don't think I yet announced we have a new staff member in the Select Board office, Ian Cremond. If you haven't met him, please stop in and say hello and introduce yourselves. I think that's everything. The board will be meeting February 18th and the 25th. It's going to be a busy couple of meetings. The meeting on the 25th will be a little bit longer also. Oh, and I did want to make note, I know we had an executive session on the agenda this evening. I am asking that the board pass on that this evening. We still have, because we were in that this was relative to the Crescent Beach seawall case, because we had council's kind of transition of council. We realized we need to collect further back, probably years worth of minutes, executive session minutes, in order for the board to approve and release those. But I did want to make the public announcement, and we'll issue the press release, which the board has already received, that the town did settle the Crescent Beach seawall case, and again, that was against Allied World Insurance Company, the surety, the bond company, and we settled for $6,658,900. That was over $1 million above the bond amount, which is highly unusual in surety cases. So I do feel good about that. It is, we anticipate we may still have to contribute some town funds to finish the Crescent Beach seawall project, and unfortunately, because of the length of time, we'll need to re-permit and look at that design somewhat anew, but we'll start that process in the coming weeks.
Great, thank you. Stacy, anything on personnel?
Actually, we just hired an executive assistant in the police department, so that's exciting. We just received the offer letter and probably expect to start date within 2 weeks or so. We have a heavy machinery equipment operator in the DPW open. We still have a part-time van driver for a COA. And
That was a question for you. I was going to ask, is it still open?
it's still open.
Okay.
And camp counselors, summer camp counselors for any of the kids that might want to, or college-age kids that might want to apply.
Great, thank you. Jason?
Just a couple of things. On Saturday, Whole Pride is having our Valentine's dance at the C Note. I will be DJing.
Oh, nice.
More specifically,
Good.
co-DJing.
A good time will be had by all.
So you can send me request to my town email. We're suggesting a $50 donation, but if you show a receipt that you supported a whole business that day, free entry. But any proceeds we get from that go per usual to our scholarship fund. And then
I got a question on that.
yeah.
Do you have a specific theme of music yet?
I
80s, 90s?
I'm more of a vibe check kind of guy.
That's good.
So I see what the audience wants.
What is this
Yeah.
you speak of?
What the vibe check?
Vibe check?
Vibe check.
Meaning who's in the audience and what music he plays.
I thought it was a style of music.
What the feeling is. The zoning bylaw committee has been meeting frequently with the goal of trying to get a couple of things together before town meeting, back to this board. I've been working, Susan's been working on a section, back to the planning board, back to this board, back to all the boards. Julia Parker and I have been working on some suggested changes to the zoning in the Nantasket Beach Overlay District that people have been looking for. And then the last thing, Paragon Carousel Friends have just set our annual meeting. Everybody's welcome, anybody's welcome. It's Sunday, March 15th at 2 p.m. at the Corner Stop Eatery. We'll be displaying our most recently restored horse, maybe even 2 horses, but I don't want to get anybody too excited.
Don't
But I think it's at
overpromise.
least, it'll definitely be at least one. And that'll be a great meeting just to hear a little bit more about what's going on with us, a lot of plans, a lot of anticipated plans with the improvement of the clock tower building in particular, once we get our lease finalized there, which is very, very soon.
It's about time.
And that's all. That's good. I'm good.
All right, so last Monday, we had a CPC meeting, and we voted to push through a few projects. I'm looking at this microscopic phone, so I apologize. The George Washington Boulevard beautification, which is that area next to the old VFW, they're looking for $49,000 to beautify that area, extend the fence, put nicer things so it really looks like a nice gateway to Hull. The Life Saving Museum outdoor space, that's like a small recreation space to help them out with their camp. That's a $26,000 and some change. The Village Park Playground and Basketball Court, that was sent forward. $570,000 was put forward. Last year, the town had voted in for the Jones Park Playground. There's $100,000 coming back. That $100,000 was voted to be put towards the total project of the village, which is $670. But town meeting will be voting on $570. Then we have, Jason just mentioned it, the Paragon Carousel Clock Tower. Their request was $150,000. The Life Saving Museum Boathouse restoration, that's just ongoing restoration, that's $58,000. And town records from our town clerk, that was $45,000. And the one I think that we all can be most proud of is we have in a bucket already $500,000, and we're moving that from one bucket to the Affordable Housing Trust, which will help that group get off the ground. And I remind everybody, town meeting votes these in, so we look for your support on that. And after that nice conversation, I would just like to bring up snow removal and respect. For everyone in town, when there is 24 inches of snow on the ground, please have some patience. Please remove yourself from social media. These men and women that work in town, whether it's in this building, the DPW, the personal attacks, need to stop. Many people, I think, in town that do this think that it's not harmful. The harm that causes takes the wind out of their sail, removes respect, and then that goes downhill for any volunteer that wants to step up and be abused during things like this. So be mindful, be respectful. Not everything's going to go right, and always remember there's a story behind it. Plows went down, people didn't show up. There's all sorts of reasons that 24 inches of snow was not removed in 8 hours. It takes time. There's nowhere to put it. You can only push it to the side. So again, I just stress patience. We live in an on-demand economy where everyone expects everything to happen in seconds. It's not going to. So be patient. Thank you.
That was top on my list, so I'll just agree with you, and I think that the DPW did an incredible job. I think it also plow people that contract with towns are almost no longer existent. If you look around, every town has signs up for plow drivers. Many of them have sold their plows and gotten out of the business. Also, the town has 52 miles of roads. That takes a while to clear. I don't know if people are aware of the amount of roads. So I think given everything, Chris Gardner and his staff at DPW should be congratulated and thanked for the amazing job that they did do in this snowstorm. Then I just had one more announcement from the Affordable Housing Committee. They are sponsoring a community conversation on accessory dwelling units, ADUs, on tomorrow, February 12th at 6:30. It'll be 6:30 to 8 in the presentation room at the high school. They will, participants at this in-person meeting will learn about how the statewide as-of-right ADU law expands opportunities for ADU development in our town, building requirements that apply to developing an accessory unit in your home or on your property, future loan resources, how you can envision an ADU contributing to Hull's housing stock, and for folks that are unable to make the meeting, it will be broadcast on Hull TV. So they've put together an incredibly informative program. I hope people that have any interest in ADUs at all will join them in person so that you could learn about it and ask questions. That's all I got.
When is that, Earl?
Tomorrow, 6:30 to 8 at the high school.
At the high school?
Yeah.
So just what we voted on earlier about giving someone a livery badge, I think we should set a policy before we do that we ask the police chief to check the driver's history beforehand. Kind of sounds, when I was looking at it, as I was voting yes, I'm like, geez, does this guy, is he a good driver, is he a bad driver, is he, what have you? So I think we should look into that, at
We can
least.
amend that right now if you'd like to.
Yeah, so, and then, Jen, my yearly complaint about the Christmas lights down at Kimberma, they look terrible.
Bulbs being out.
Yeah, no, just everything. It's because of the wind that we had in the last, because, God, the last 2, 3, 4 months have been so windy. It looks terrible. And I'm out driving at night, day and night too, so when I drive by at night, I'm looking up like, ugh. So I think we should do it, I think we should do it differently instead of next year doing the same thing over and over. What's that saying? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result?
Insanity?
So, yeah, insanity. So it does, it looks.
On that note, maybe we wrap what's left of those trees the way we wrapped down to the hotel, and get rid of the lights. Because the lights did get repaired, and they lasted for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
No fault of the light bulbs.
No, no fault to anybody. I think we fault the weather.
Yeah.
But I think we just need a different approach there.
Brian, we're still in session. Would you like to amend the
Yeah, I think it's important that you
motion
amend that.
for the livery?
Yeah. Sure. So do you want me to make a motion?
Yeah, go ahead.
Make a motion that when we do vote on a livery badge for any reason, that the police department check to see that the person has a good driving record.
And I'll
That good
accept his revision.
Perfect. Okay, you accept? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Great.
I thought you meant make a revision connected to his livery.
Well, can you say it's specific to tonight?
Yeah, because I don't know that we should make a motion on something, a policy without
Just say
posting,
to tonight's.
right? Just related to his.
I'll amend that and just say tonight and moving forward.
Well, going forward, I think we just have to remember to say your exact language.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Because if we're going to I don't think we could set a policy without it being put on the agenda.
Yeah, but
right?
maybe we
yeah.
can be proactive, Jen, and when we're voting on it,
Yep.
we can say, we talked to the police chief and, we got the okay from him, as opposed to holding it up, Because again, I didn't want to hold this guy up just in case if he's starting his job tomorrow. Or
Right.
Right.
But you do want to know he's a safe driver.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
You could always make it subject, approval subject.
Every
to-
approval could be
Every
that going
approval could be
forward, yeah.
subject.
Okay,
Right,
yeah, no,
yeah.
I'm fine with that,
Great.
yep, yep.
Right.
Okay, so
So Jen, can you just update the town?
we just have to vote on your amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Now you can go.
Okay, so Jen, can you just quickly, I know it's getting late, update us on the Cohasset transfer station? And it's going, right?
It's going, so there, at least as of last Friday, I believe, there were available permits
Yeah.
at Cohasset for non-residents. I have to pull up because I don't want to misquote the costs, but
So the
it's
cost, I've looked
300
into it, so the cost is $300 for out-of-town residents, hence we are.
Correct.
But also too is a benefit is that at that transfer station, to get rid of say an air conditioner
TV,
is
yeah.
very expensive. So they're 1/3 the cost to get rid of a mattress. So if you do the numbers, if you look at Star Waste, you're almost talking about $1,000 a year. I think it was $80.
Yeah, it's accurate.
Okay, it's about 1,000? So now you can, if you wanted to, and the transfer stations are open all weekend as well. You buy your transfer for the year, or your ticket for the year. And also, you have to pay for the bags. The bags are $2. And starting April 1st, Mark down at the hardware store will be supplying them.
Right.
Like I said, I think it's $2 a piece.
Yeah,
I think
it's
a great
for
thing.
like a roll
Yeah.
of, I think
If
you
someone
get a
wants to
roll of
save,
20.
if someone wants to save some money on trash, and they have time on a Saturday morning to spend the extra 15, 20 minutes and go over there.
Yep.
And also, like I said, not to, rehash, but, to get rid of those bulk items as well. And, again, it's like a third of the cost, so.
Hold on,
Yeah.
just jump on that. I
Yeah.
got an email. They must have automated emails that keep coming.
Yeah.
So they keep advertising it, but I know it's very limited. So if you're out there wanting to do it,
So I
don't
think
wait.
They had 100, I believe, available.
So there's 150 available, and right now, they have like 29 sold. So you have your opportunity. This is your opportunity now. Maybe, hopefully, the Hull Times will pick up on it. Because anybody that, complains, not complains, that's a bad word, anybody that's concerned that they're paying too much money for their waste, and again, if they have the time to go over to Cohasset, it's right in the Cohasset Hingham Hall line, it's not that far from Glastonbury Abbey. And so Jen, so I think I covered that. So did you say in an email that we hired 10 new plow drivers after the big storm and before this last one?
Yes, so we did add I want to say about 10 more plow drivers.
Okay.
Yep,
All-
so we'll
obviously
have
all-
increased
obviously all
capacity.
private.
All private,
Okay.
yep. Yeah, we don't hire, so I know there was some, I forget who raised about the staffing numbers at DPW, and they were significantly higher way back when. And I actually talked to the DPW director about that, and he said that was decades ago, and the reason they would never need that amount of staffing right now, because now there's equipment to do what staff back then used to take care of. So they used, for example, the cemetery, they would hand dig plots. They were putting in the drainage system, so there's just not that need for that quantity.
Yep.
In terms of plow drivers, we would never hire full-time or even part-time plow drivers because we may never get to drop a single snowflake. So that's common in municipalities. They're contracted out. And somebody mentioned earlier, they've just been very difficult to contract for because they're required to have a certain level of insurance, which makes it not worth, if they purchase that insurance and they get 1 or 2 days to plow or no days.
It's a loss.
It's costing them to contract with the municipality. But we did put that $1,500 incentive out, which would come at the end of a season, and provided they performed according to their contract.
Yep.
And we did get an influx of plow
Good.
drivers.
Just a quick comment, and then I'll end it there. So Erin, when you had mentioned that, all the towns are looking for plow drivers, I think we need to be more competitive price-wise, because I know some people that I know very well, they plow in Hingham. There's a few people that I know at my boat club, they plow down in Situate. So, and what it is they pay a little bit more money than us. So, and the wear and tear that the snow puts on their vehicles.
Yep.
That also has to be figured into, the hourly rate that we're offering. So I think we need to be more competitive moving forward. I think that would give us a little bit more of not an advantage, but it gives us a little bit more of, if everything was equal, they'd rather plow in their own towns as opposed to moving out, so. And the last thing, and is for Stacy, and we still do need that council on aging driver. Okay, all right, that was it.
Jerry?
Excellent. I appreciate you bringing up the waste recycling permit available in Cohasset. I got an email from the communications gentleman over in Cohasset, Kevin Perry, who's a Hull kid, and he asked me to bring it up, so we covered all that. Fantastic. I'd like this board to, again, consider the public comment policy and just provide an open public comment session or time period, either at the beginning or the end of the meetings. I think the beginning is more practical. Our neighbors are doing it. I've witnessed it. Watched some other meetings. Again, I'm not going to beat that dead horse, but I don't think there's any reason not to do it. Similar situation. We had some speakers tonight that were allowed to speak for a very long time. you know, and I think we can shorten that up and stick to what our policy is, which is 2 to 3 minutes, right? Staying on track of what we're talking about. But what I'm talking about is just an open public comment session to allow residents to bring up new topics that they think are, you know, important. And I just want to address the plowing discussion and speech. And again, I think this happens a lot. It's a knee-jerk reaction. Staff is getting attacked. Nobody's attacking DPW staff. You know.
Can I stop you there for 1 second?
Sure.
Should have seen some of the comments.
One of the comments was, "I wish I had a gun." That's the level of insanity that's out there right now.
That's not directed at the DPW.
Oh, it was.
Actually.
It was directed
for the DPW?
to them.
Yes.
Yes, right.
All right,
to
well,
them. That's what I was addressing.
There are people out there everywhere like that, but the point is, I think the general public in Hull understands that the DPW is very much, you know, extremely busy, overworked, really good people who are on top of things as much as they can. This was an abnormal storm, there's no question. The problem that I have with what you guys are talking about is you're minimizing the voices of all those elderly people who, some of them were on social media, and they were locked in their houses and couldn't get out. You know, and their streets are unplowed for multiple days, and maybe they need to go to the doctor and that kind of stuff. So I'm not saying, this is my suggestion. I took this personally. I feel like this was a failure on my part as a select board member, because I believe it is for us to determine when there's a problem like this. And I did email the town manager, and I did find a quote from the DPW director in the report that looks at the DPW building to summarize what conditions it's in. You know, it's related to this dual-use facility. But in that report, there is a quote from the DPW. We used to have 38 people. Maybe it was decades ago. The point is, I wanted to bring it up in this public session to discuss it amongst ourselves. The town manager clarified it's really her purview and authority to handle that because it's a staffing issue. Fantastic, okay? But this is exactly what happened is we did the right thing, and we increased the incentives, and we got more plow drivers. The second storm that we had, I saw these guys consistently on my street plowing, which was again was great, and that's what we need to try to. You talk about continuous improvement. We need to be prepared for an abnormal storm, and this isn't, again, I'm not trying to pick a fight. That's our job. Right? We got to make sure that the elderly people in our town, which is a massive part of the community, right? When a big storm hits, blizzard of 78 stuff, this was a big 24-inch storm. It's very unmanageable, I get it. But we got to have a backup plan. We can't just tell people that they can't leave their houses for 2 or 3 days. And on top of, so hold on, let me just finish. On top of that, okay, I go to get dinner. And I'm hearing it from business owners too, who don't want to say anything because they don't want to be seen in this kind of light, okay? So this is what happens is people don't want to talk about it because, you know, you're seen in this kind of light, and then if they do talk about it, they're, you know, and again, I realize there's outliers that threaten people with a gun and all that kind of stuff, but I think, you know, you're picking the real extreme outliers.
Jerry, I'm going to disagree with you. 95% of Hull people understand, respect. I don't even know if it's 5%. There's a small portion of people that go over the line every single time. Every single person at this table wants the elderly to be able to get out of their house. They try their best. The DPW, all of them do. The DPW begged for drivers. Did the incentive change, Jen? The amount of the incentive?
There wasn't we didn't have an incentive.
She just said it's at $1,500.
We didn't have an incentive to begin with, and then we instituted the incentive to try and get, and I don't know if, you know, we had that second storm, who's to say if it was the incentive that drove additional contractors or people saying, okay, we're gonna get snow this winter, I want in.
I was just going to mention that. That was going to be my point, is that for the last couple of years, it's cost these plow drivers a lot of money, so they didn't want to plow.
Exactly.
But now you get a big
Yeah.
storm, and you see another storm on the horizon, and they do, it's not even just here, they're
Yeah.
starting to come out to the towns, they grab their insurance,
Yep.
and because they know they can make some money. The past 3 or 4 years, they haven't made anything, and it's cost them money. It actually cost them probably for 2 years, and then they dropped the last 2 years.
So I
I'm
just-
not
I just
saying
wa-
that these might have been helpful, but.
So again, I look at this.
Let me finish my
Sure.
thing. So one thing you mentioned, it's up to us. Like, you made it like it was somewhere in our world, the 5 of us. It's not. The DPW department was doing their job. They were begging for bodies. I don't know more what we could have done. That's
So-
the plain and simple. What more
I can tell you,
difference would it have
in my
made?
opinion, what we can do is, as a town or as a select board, make a conscious decision to have the equipment or a really good relationship with a site subcontractor that has heavy equipment to remove snow, right? You got to have that stuff in place in the event of a big emergency.
Usually that costs you something to have that in place.
Of course it costs you something.
Even if it doesn't snow. So
I
again,
understand.
to me, that's a DPW department decision. We can kind of help things along with maybe adding bodies somewhere down the line, but
Well, can I just make a comment added to that? Like, I think from this discussion, just real quick, because we shouldn't get too deep into it, but it sounds like, yeah, definitely, we all heard the complaints. Okay, so what's the first thing? Making sure that people contact directly the DPW, emergency management if they need it. What's something more short-term we could do? Jen discussed the incentive, right? An incentive plan that we could do right away. What's something more structurally we could do as a policy agency? If you remember when we did our goals and priorities in the spring, I raised and we agreed to, and Jen is working on the budget for increased funding, operational funding for the DPW department. So you do it in those steps, and I think I'm trying to split the difference here a little bit. We do have a role, but right in the middle, in the moment, we don't. You let people know who to call. You try to facilitate those connections. You trust the person who's leading the operations to come up with reasonable and possible short-term fixes, because you can't change a budget in the middle of a cycle. And then we're here, just like we did in the spring, and I know you had referenced that you were looking at the DPW operational funding for this year, and that's what we do.
To get ahead of that subject, but I am recommending adding, and it's not because of this storm or complaints, adding an additional DPW staff member. The other thing that compounded the issue was, we have sufficient sanders and plows. We had one go down. We can't predict that. They're well maintained, and we're very fortunate in our DPW staff that we have somebody on staff that's especially talented and saves the town a lot of money by making those mechanical repairs. But again, in that moment when 2 to 3 feet of snow is falling in a 24-hour period, not to mention the other thing that I think gets lost on people is we had a lot of wind, which creates snow drifts. So I'll even add just a little extra plug for DPW. When they were able to finally relocate the snow, they actually created a snow berm, which I thought was a little bit ingenious, along the HRA property. So it caught the snow, and it actually did help the drift on topics. So there is a lot that they are doing that has been done. There's a prior, I did put out this information on Facebook on the town page prior to the storm. There is a prioritization to how those roads get plowed. They need to plow the main roads first, because those are our evacuation route, those are our emergency response routes, those are the main thoroughways in town. And I'm going to take this opportunity also on the Facebook page. It is out of hand, and I want to communicate. I'm hearing not only from my staff far too often, not that they're talking to me too often, but that they're feeling this way too often, as well as community residents. What's happening on Facebook is not who we are as a community, and it's not representative. And if I sound a little angry, it does make me angry, because I am telling you as a board, it impacts people in this community. It impacts staff. It impacted DPW. The compounding thing with the first storm that I started to say and then change gears was their phone lines were down. Ice had formed in our fiber box, for lack of a better term, and it caused their phones to go down. When they came in the next morning, they had 182 requests and complaints and 2 thank yous. We can't, you know, I couldn't predict that their phone lines were going to go down, but we had people out that night de-icing the fiber. Their lines were back up. They got right back to work. And all I'm going to say is just be kind, be mindful. Our lines are typically always open. Our doors are always open. If there are concerns or people want to understand processes more than they may, contact us. And we're happy to listen and provide feedback. But the nastiness is, it's unfortunate. I'll just leave it there.
So just very quickly, 10 seconds. Just an observation is that the DCR was really well plowed out, better than the town, you know, because they have the apparatus, they have everything. And they only have
smaller.
They have it smaller. But you know what they were doing? They were, while the town kind of needed some help at that point, they were pounding the parking lots.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think too many people are going to go down there in a blizzard into a parking lot. And you know, at the end of the day, oh, you know, that's DCR, we're different. No, when you pay your taxes, we all pay our taxes. And part of that tax money goes to the DCR. So if they can help in a once in a say blue moon, 10 years, 15 years,
Great point.
Help us out. But I don't have, you know me with DCR, I don't have any.
So the last thing I'll add on this is the state, as you're taking the curve, and this is a state road, I believe, right?
Saw that.
Metsamari, as you're taking the turn back into town, the Saturday after the storm, okay, this is a full Saturday after the storm, I had to slam my brakes on because I couldn't take the turn with another car beside me.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a state road that was also having massive issues with snow removal. It wasn't isolated to just Hull. We understand that completely.
I agree, Jim.
And again, I'm taking it personally. I think this is something we have to really take seriously because of the reasons I mentioned and making sure, you know, I think somebody mentioned on Facebook that there were 2 elderly couples who had been locked in, unable to get out of their homes for 3 days. And that person went out there and shoveled them out themselves. So, you know, there's multiple sides to these stories. We understand that, you know, people get offended, people go crazy in these situations, but at the same time, these are some of the really critical things that we have to, you know, keep an eye on as well.
But you make a good point there, and part of being a neighbor is helping out your neighbors. So if you know that you've got elderly people next door to you that can't shovel, and you can, pick up a shovel and help them out. That's what it means to be a neighbor.
Absolutely. It's not the town's responsibility, but again, from their perspective, the issue is the massive, you know, they can't get to their car, number one, and even if they did, you know, there's no way to get the car shoveled out.
Chairman, can I make a comment on the parking down at the commuter rail? David Rail and 3 Town Way. I'm a little bit upset with the town. A lot of people had to get to work. There was no notifications on the road. I deal without a sticker. For 3 days in a row, they've given out $50 tickets. Well, that's a fine how do you do for us to be friendly with the town of Hingham. What if one summer day they shut off their water to Hull, which I know they can't do, but I'm just bringing that up as a comparison. I think you should not charge them the $50 because it'd be a good thing, good rapport for the town of Hull to excuse those tickets.
And maybe
And I'm sure the police didn't like
ask them to take some trees down over the electrical line.
That's a fair shot.
In lieu of waiving the $50 fee, maybe they can allow us to.
They did take trees down. Of course they did. They took down 1,500.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, David.
Well, did we take the motion?
We are.
We have a motion on the floor now. Is it something that's urgent, or?
Well, yeah, can I just take 2 minutes? Susan Vermillion, 17 East Street. I sent some emails to you and Jen and copied the whole select board and other boards on January 6th, and then I followed up again a few weeks later, and I haven't heard anything back. And it's related to requesting a multi-board meeting to go over parking and transportation issues. Now that the HRA has reduced the parking by 500 parking spaces for this summer, I wanted to get your take on that, and I know that you're busy with budgets and town meeting and all of that, but I didn't get any feedback, so I don't know where, where your thoughts are on that.
Okay,
It's a good idea. I'd like to get police and fire and multiple boards and kind of brainstorm what we can do as a town to make sure that it doesn't become a shit show on another Juneteenth or anything of that nature. So we want to get ahead of that. And so as the economic development person, I'm afraid that this could
Selectmember
negatively impact
Gray would
us.
like to respond to?
So it's very hard, as you know, for any of us to respond to that email as a group, because we're not allowed to.
No, I
Secondly, what's-
sent it to two people and I copied it.
Yeah, well, when I saw it, I just assumed we were all in there. But anyways, that is truly an HRA issue. We can have conversations with them, but that true conversation has to happen at an HRA meeting because they are an autonomous board to us. It's their decision.
I'm not asking for their.
No, I know that.
The decision's been made, but the town has to decide, because at some point, there's going to be something on that land.
Okay, those are discussions that will happen with the police department, and the police will have to,
No, you don't understand what I'm asking.
I think I do.
I want to clarify. I'm not asking about it being an HRA problem. It's a town problem. We will have people come.
Right, I'm saying we have, that will be dealt with, that has to be dealt with the police department because it becomes an issue of how to move the traffic and how to move people. And I think does the chief have the authority to expand the parking if there's an emergency?
We authorized that 1 year. We haven't done it
It's not
this year.
continuing, yeah. But I understand what your question is, Susan, and we can connect about that.
I'm looking
And I
for
think
us to
this
get
is,
together for solutions.
We will look into that, and we will address it before the summer situation. Okay, there is a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I was the second.
There is a second. All in favor?
Aye. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.